And as an official partner of the Dallas Cowboys, nobody knows that better than Specs. Fuel up with a big league selection of ice-cold beers, hard-to-find spirits, world-class wines, and gourmet snacks, all at Pee-wee-sized prices. Gear up for game day with 2 Texas originals, the Dallas Cowboys and Specs. The fun starts here.
Shout Specs, low price, amazing. Here's to you, shout cheers to savings.
Experience the most electrifying event of the holiday season, Cowboys Christmas Extravaganza powered by Reliant at the Star in Frisco. Every Friday and Saturday night from November 17th through December 16th, Cowboys Christmas Extravaganza ignites the Star with an unforgettable holiday performance, showcasing 65 incredible performers, including the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, plus appearances from your favorite Cowboys football heroes. Admission is free. Visit thestardistrict.com for more info.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill your house this season with savings. Right now, buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and pay no interest for 5 full years. Fill your home with energy-efficient windows for a customized, authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You can even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Call 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Window Nation, proud partner of your Dallas Cowboys.
Tom Thumb's new Drive Up and Go service makes grocery shopping easy and convenient for anyone.
25 pounds of ground chuck, 15 bags of hamburger buns, 28 bags of Tostitos, 10 packs of Pepsi, and some barbecue tongs.
You pick the time, you drive up, and go.
With Tom Thumb's Drive Up and Go, anyone has time in their schedule to go grocery shopping. Just a few clicks away, and you can feed your team.
Everyone can be a grocery pro bowler with Tom Thumb's Drive Up and Go. Download the app or try an online order to get started today.
This is the exclusive home of Dallas Cowboys football. KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas, Fort Worth. Let's go, Cowboys.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
From our fan studio secured by DFWsecurity.com, it's time for the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan.
And welcome on into the Get Right. My name is Alec Medford, joined by, as always, Reggie Atatula.
What up?
Rigo Mendoza is holding things down for you tonight all the way until 11 o'clock. Thank you so much for sticking with us through the Cowboys Hour. With DeMarvion Overshow, nice to hear from the rookie linebacker after what we hoped would have been a promising rookie season came to a screeching halt. Nice to hear him in great spirits and get to know him a little bit more. But now it is time for your favorite live and local broadcast here on the Night Times in the mighty Metroplex. Got Monday Night Football. We got some hoops on. We got a lot to get to here in the next 3 hours. The truckwreck.com text line is 877-881-1053. 877-881-1053.
That's right.
Easy for me to say. A lot of talking in the past 3 days. A lot of talking. But we have a lot to talk about here tonight as we got coaches getting the boot. We've got Cowboys content. We've got a Mavs conversation to have. AM on the FM returns to the evenings for the first time in what feels like a million.
Excited for that.
Years. Sharing time, maiden voyage. I'm trying to combine words now because, that's a thing.
Look, it's all good. It's the nighttime. If I was running point like you are on this evening, I'd be fumbling words myself. Nope, no big deal. We're here to have a good time.
It happens. And you can have a good time with us on the Twitch and YouTube as well. Dallas Fan Cam on Twitch, 105.3 The Fan on YouTube, and you can get involved with any and all of the conversations here tonight. Plenty to get to. We're going to start off our conversations here with some playoff previews, if you will. A look at the playoff picture for the Dallas Cowboys and the NFC specifically. As if things were to get started today in the postseason, you would be looking at the number 5 seed for the Dallas Cowboys. And what does that mean? Well, that means you're hitting the road. Where are you going? You're going to Atlanta, and you're playing the Atlanta Falcons. So 877-881-1053, let us know. Are you okay with where things stand right now as the Eagles keep on piling on wins? They get their 10th win of the season yesterday. You're kind of staring down the barrel of having to win out if you're the Cowboys, if you're trying to look at the NFC East picture, because the Eagles are just finding ways to win one-score games. I have plenty of thoughts about that, but my prevailing thought here is I'm just trying to hold on for dear life for the 5 seed because
wow. So you are in fact resigned to the Cowboys in the 5 seed.
I am absolutely resigned to the Cowboys in the 5 seed. And there's a few different reasons. There's only one factor of this that actually really scares me. And that's the fact that they would be on the road because they've been so good at home for the most part this season. It's been utter blowouts. I love seeing the Cowboys play AT&T Stadium, and I would love that in the first round of the playoffs. But if you're going to go against a team in the playoffs where it matters the most, I would not mind it being the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, the reason why obviously this question comes up is you see Monday Night Football, and maybe one of the better chances at the Philadelphia Eagles, who currently lead the NFC East. I know that's not fun to hear, but I mean, it is the case. And there was a chance, there was a challenge. You had Josh Allen throwing the football incredibly well. It played an incredibly good game outside of a single turnover that was just a really bad decision.
Yeah.
And this was yet another one of those instances where the Eagles kind of got away with it, right? They have just been a team that have found ways to win, even when they've looked gettable. And so I know that there's a lot of Cowboys fans out there, and particularly on Twitter, which I understand it's not necessarily the entirety of the world, but I think it can be somewhat illustrative of what's happening. And I saw folks out there that are like, oh man, trying to find where you can get that loss back with the Eagles, and then maybe you can, even this up once the Cowboys then take on Philadelphia here in a week or two. And so with that being the case, like after you see the Bills give it their best shot and not be able to get anything done, and you look up and this Eagles team is now 10-1, and they're kind of cruising through what is supposed to be a tough portion of their schedule before they hit the likes of let me see what we've got going. They've still got the Niners coming up, but then they got the Seahawks, and they get the Giants, Cardinals, Giants, right? Like they end the season with a really easy schedule. And so it made me wonder, like, are you just in a place where you're like, look, let's be honest, that number one, or not even number one, but getting a first round bye might be out of the realm of possibilities. Getting that NFC East win might be out of the realm of possibility. And I'm still holding out hope because we've seen this year in particular. And I felt like early on in the season, I looked up and I was like, wait, is this going to be one of those years where like nobody's particularly like good?
Yeah.
And not quite, right? You have some teams that are good. However, everybody has their losses, right? I know that when we talk about the Cowboys, because it's close, we've talked about these losses that are, obviously you had the ways in which the Niners embarrassed you in front of company. You had the ways in which you just gave up a bad one to Arizona. You played with Philadelphia pretty well, but ultimately came up on the bad side of it. And then you look at the wins that you have, and they're all against teams that are under 500. And with that being the case, people are looking around and like, that doesn't mean anything, right? That's a bad loss. And we talk about those things, but you look around and all these teams that we look at as good have a bad loss or two on their resume. And you're like, all right, so are the Eagles going to get that? And they're just not necessarily. However, they could succumb to the same thing that you've seen the Cowboys succumb to with Arizona. You've seen the Niners succumb to. You've seen good teams have kind of head-scratching losses. And so I'm still holding out hope that maybe that happens. But some of that still feels like naivete when I see the way that the Eagles are getting this done, because that's a pretty well-made roster. That's a really well-made roster. And ultimately, even when they don't play up to their best potential, they are still good enough to be able to get those, get out of the jams that they've put themselves in.
Yeah, the one-score games have been absolutely just pivotal for the Eagles. And the point differential is a whole conversation that's been had about them. And, it just feels like the perfect regular season roster to me. You mentioned the roster construction over there in Philadelphia. Howie Roseman's work is just phenomenal. It's a very complete roster. There's not many places that you point towards and say, hey, that's a place that they can get got. There's guys that can give up plays, but there's not guys that are going to lose you games necessarily. And I'm really torn because I've kind of gone back and forth with it, especially after watching the Eagles this weekend. And, against the Chiefs, you're seeing it against premier competition that, they're finding ways to win when it matters. So I'm thinking for the regular season, for the most part, I'm just looking at what's next outside of a 1 seed, outside of a first round bye, outside of the division. It's hard not to for me. I always hold out hope to some extent. I always do, not just for the Dallas Cowboys, but for any team in the NFL, because we see weird implosions happen a lot. I mean, we were talking before Crosstalk with G-Bag earlier to Broadus.
Yes.
He was like, looking at this AFC South, there's teams that were supposed to be awful this year, and they're all really competitive. I mean, the Indianapolis Colts lost their rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson, for the season. He only played a few games, and they're still out here winning football games with Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
So I hold out hope, and I reserve that right to backtrack a little bit to some extent, but I'll eat my crow if I'm wrong. I just think that you need to start putting together the quality wins and not really worrying about what lies ahead of you in terms of playoff seeding. If you can just start getting me the wins, I don't think I care about the seeding as much as I do the level of play, if that makes sense. Because if you start not caring about the seeding, you're probably going to start moving up in the seeding and having to play a better team.
You subscribe to the theory, don't think about it, it'll come to you? Is that where you're at?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think that this is where the two conversations converge, because one of the things that gives me a little bit of hope, I'm able to hold out a little bit of hope, is that you're seeing the style of play change, right? Early on in the season when this team was winning and obviously beating teams that a lot of people looked at and said, were willing to scoff at or, kind of wave away, it was in part because you were doing it in such a fashion where the defense was dominant, right? We understood that to be the case, but the offense was not doing things that made you feel confident in it. Over the stretch of games since the bye week, you've seen a style of offense, a flavor of offense that makes you go, hey man, this looks like a team that can be dominant. This looks like a team that, if the defense maybe is not being otherworldly, not being nickname worthy, not being historical at times, which we haven't necessarily seen, but if they're in that place, the offense looks like they're capable of saying, okay, we need to turn it to another gear. We need to get the ball down the field. We need to get chunk plays, things of that nature, which we did not see early on in the season. And that makes me look up and go, okay, maybe now you have the capability and the possibilities of, one, beating Philadelphia, which that would be the start if you wanted to get some better seeding. But then two, actually being the threat that this Cowboys team needs to be in the postseason. And I think that's where all this conversation is, right? Yeah. Having the right seeding is not just to be able to hold that up and say, yeah, we won the NFC East, which is great, right? And not just being able to say we are in this position. It's to give you a better opportunity to achieve the ultimate goal for these Cowboys, which is going deep in the playoffs. And part of that has just been play style as well, being the type of team that you can depend on night in, night out, right, week in, week out, to come and play a type of game where you're capable of competing in a real way against good teams.
At that point, I'm just wondering, I'm looking at the rest of the playoff seeding, and I'm starting to think, if you were to move up, where would you want to go? Because if you move up, obviously, one spot, you just flip spots with Atlanta. But if you move up into
I don't know that you can end up in that spot with Atlanta, right? If you win the division, That's true. You're going to have a record that puts you up in that place where you probably have, well, I mean, obviously, the one seed gets a bye, but you probably are in a place where you're going to get a very advantageous, favorable matchup. And, of course, the biggest portion of that is you're playing at home. And as you detailed earlier, this team has been gangbusters at AT&T Stadium.
Man, because I'm starting to look around the rest of the playoff seeding. I'm like, obviously, Minnesota, they're playing Monday Night Football right now. They're down 3-0 to the Bears, which this is a barn burner of a game. Not. But other teams in the NFC are starting to show their weaknesses as well, like the Detroit Lions. We saw it on Thanksgiving Day. Things kind of implode there with them against the Green Bay Packers. You talked about earlier in the segment that, kind of thought at the beginning of the year this might be one of those years where teams are just kind of good, not great. And we're starting to see some of that in the bottom echelon. The 1 and the 2, we know who they are in the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. We know the 49ers are a juggernaut, and the Eagles are just a team that is gritty and going to win no matter what the circumstance is. Outside of that, I really don't know, and that's where I'm ready for the Cowboys to take that next step and to start as early as this Thursday going against the winning teams, which then there's going to be the person that says, hey, if you beat the Seattle Seahawks, they're not a winning team anymore. They're at 500. I get it. But if you can start with Seattle, then you can really start to have some advantages going into this and try to get that advantageous matchup in the first round of the playoffs. So I think I am resigning to the Cowboys in the 5th seed, but I'm open for conversation.
Which is funny because it feels like if you're what, 11 weeks or 12 weeks into a season and you look up and you go, damn, this is all that we can get. You would think that would mean that you are pretty down on a team. And I don't know that that's where anybody, well, I shouldn't speak for everyone because that's sincerely not fair, particularly speaking to Cowboys Nation, which is not a monolith by any means. You get far different stretches of, people's feelings on this team. But I think that a lot of people that look at this team would not have the feeling of, damn, this team has a cap, this team can't be a certain, thing. I think you look at it and go, even if you are resigned to the 5th seed is probably where you are, I think there's still reasons to look up and be like, but I still think the Cowboys can get the job done. The job being making a deep run. They're still going to have to show you something, and that begins, as you mentioned, with Thursday night against the Seattle Seahawks, actually going and beating a team that has some level of expectation coming into the game. But I think that I'm still in a place where I can see someone resigning to the 5th seed and still looking up and being like, this Cowboys team is one of the better ones of the last couple of years and has an opportunity to really show you something in the postseason, because that's what it's about for them.
It does feel odd to feel so high about a 5 seed, but hey, I'll take what I can get, because this is the best I've felt about the Cowboys all season. So again, Thursday is the date. The Cowboys hosting the Seattle Seahawks at AT&T Stadium. You can hear all of the coverage right here on your home of the Cowboys, 105.3 The Fan. We are off and running here on the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan until 11 o'clock today. And coming up next, got a bombshell today, not too shocking. Frank Reich has been fired. See, English is great today.
That's right.
What's next for Carolina? Who will get hired? And who's going to be the next to get the boot? We'll talk about it next on The Fan.
All day, every day, bringing you insights and information no one has right here on the
back and search for it. We send it to you. Sign up for our fan newsletter today at 1053thefan.com. Proudly presented by Bosch Power Tools.
Do you know that during this time of year, blood donations are at their lowest? You can help. In just 1 hour, you can donate blood with Carter Blood Care to help local patients in need. Donate blood, save lives. Visit carterbloodcare.org or call 800-366-2834.
It's football season, and the NFL is in full effect on the free Odyssey app. We're heading into the final stretch of the regular season, and the playoff picture is starting to come into focus. Whatever team you're rooting for, the free Odyssey app has you covered with the local talk and your team's podcasts. Plus, listen to play-by-play of every Sunday night, Monday night, and Thursday night game from Westwood One. If you're looking for the NFL, it's all in the free Odyssey app. Download it today and search for your favorite team. That's AUDACY.
It's a Cowboys Monday, brought to you by Twin Peaks and K-Post Roofing and Waterproofing on 105.3 The Fan.
This segment of the Get Right is brought to you by Frankel & Frankel. Life is unpredictable and accidents happen. Frankel & Frankel are the go-to attorneys for car and truck wrecks in the DFW. And if your loved one have been injured in an accident, contact Frankel & Frankel for a free consultation at truckwreck.com or call 214 or 817-333-3333.
Back here on the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan, about to get into the mess that is the Carolina Panthers and the NFL coaching carousel. That and more in just a moment. Alec Medford and Reggie Adetua with you until 11 o'clock tonight. If you have any kind of implications fantasy-wise or fandom-wise in Monday Night Football, we are at the 2-minute warning coming out of it. And it is 3-0 in favor of the Chicago Bears.
Lots
Shout out
of
Will
scoring.
Chambers. Yeah. I needed to stay like this, honestly, because I'm playing Peyton Russell in our fan fantasy league.
And nobody cares about your fantasy
Yeah,
league.
nobody cares, but I care about embarrassing Peyton.
Fair enough. I think actually more people care about that in particular than like just the idea of your fantasy league in particular. So, with that being the case, are you currently doing the job of embarrassing him?
We are currently doing the job because Peyton and I are having a generational mid-off, if you will. We have scored a combined 140 points or so. I'm beating Peyton by 5 right now because he has TJ Hawkinson and I have Jordan Addison.
Excellent.
So
very fun.
This is going to be annoying to keep track of throughout the rest of the show today, but what's going to be fun to keep track of the rest of the season going into the off season. Who knows how long it's going to take to figure all this out. The coaching carousel in the NFL got started today, really, because
that's not even true. I thought that myself, and I was like, oh, wow, the first domino. I was like, oh, wait, remember when Josh McDaniel got fired a few weeks back?
Yeah, that did happen.
This feels like it gets started earlier and earlier. And I understand that Frank Reich gets fired in Carolina today, and he only gets 11 games, which I believe is the shortest tenure of a head coach, like a non-interim head coach, since 1978. Something like that. And so, yeah, it's still short-lived, but somehow still not the first guy that got fired this year. Very odd.
Yeah, and it's so much has happened since the Josh McDaniels thing across the league that it's hard to even keep up with. Like you said, it's happening earlier and earlier every year, but Frank Reich was given the cardboard box and told to clean out his office today. Yeah, it's getting ugly out there in Carolina as he brought in a guy like Josh McCown. He brought in some other experienced assistant coaches and whatnot. Mm-hmm. David Tepper, the owner, new ownership. Like, let's be aggressive. Let's get some, seasoned guys in the building. I mean, they've got Jim Caldwell in there doing senior advisory stuff for them and everything.
Jim Caldwell, good coach. In fact, like they have a lot of dudes on their coaching staff that I view as good coaches.
Yeah. And it just didn't seem to all mesh together the way that they had expected. Bryce Young's development hasn't gone the way that Tepper, the owner, has wanted to see. The offense hasn't been there. The special teams and the defense has been pretty solid for the most part. And going into the Cowboys matchup for the Carolina Panthers, their defense was like number 9 in the NFL overall. So there were some overperforming pieces that were not on the offense, and that's kind of Frank Reich's thing if you didn't know. So he got the boot. So what's next for the Lions and the rest of the NFL coaching carousel? And starting with the Lions.
I was like, I imagine you said the Lions because the first name that has come up because he is the golden boy of this next cycle, it seems like, is Ben Johnson.
Absolutely.
Offensive coordinator who's out there. Obviously, Jared Goff, I sometimes I talk about him in kind of like a dismissive way, and I want it to be understood. I understand the level of good that he is. He just has a ceiling, which is why Sean McVay moved on from him in LA. But the ways in which Jared Goff has been good is because when you have an offensive coordinator that puts him in the right positions to succeed, he can do so very well. And that's what Ben Johnson has done. Really focused on play action, which allows Jared Goff to be good. Don't go look at those numbers the last couple of weeks. It won't confirm what I'm saying, but you get what I mean. Over the course of the entirety of the season, they've run the football fairly well. Like, the offense has been very good. And so Ben Johnson has been looked at as the golden boy. In fact, he was kind of sought after last, coaching cycle, and he was expected to kind of be in this job when Frank Reich got and he removed himself, which makes me wonder if he actually is the next look on this, because one thing that I've realized very quickly in David Tepper's tenure, where he has, I believe, moved on from 4 coaches already, is that there's not a lot of patience there. And I look up, and I guess let me phrase this as a question for you. Do you look at this job and think that it's good money? Because I look at this job and I say, oh no, that's not good money, right? Because you're kind of locked into a quarterback.
Yep.
At that point, it'll be a second-year quarterback who hasn't looked great, right? And maybe we can talk about the reasons why he hasn't looked great, but he hasn't. There's not a lot of talent around them, and you utilize your first-round pick in order to get that quarterback. So you don't have as much of the draft capital as you would like to put things around them. And on top of that, if you really want to get deep into this, the front office, and this is where I think Frank Reich is getting some of the bad deal. He hasn't demonstrated in any way that I believe that he is like the right answer for head coach. But the front office has not necessarily been good with the draft picks that they have made. Like, there's a lot of dudes you can look around and go, oh, that is, if not a bust adjacent, right?
Yeah.
I can start naming them off, but there's a lot of them. There's like Tommy Tremble, there's Barkevius Mingo, there's like some dudes that you look up and you go, actually, that hasn't really worked out all too well. And so you'd be going into a situation where I think the best reason to take this job is because there's only 32 of them, right? That'd be the best reason. Yeah. And so with that being the case, just because you got to the market early on this firing does not mean that you're going to get a great person to fill that role. And that really stinks for Carolina, but not my job, I guess.
It does stink for Carolina because, like you mentioned, he already turned down this job once, did Ben Johnson. And you talk about Tepper, I was reading a little bit about him, and, obviously billionaire, hedge fund guy. And I was reading some reporting, I believe it was from The Athletic, that was talking about, they talked to some front office sources and they said that this is a guy that's so used to working with people with balance sheets and stuff, and they're accurate 100% of the time, if not 110% of the time. He's not used to guys living and breathing football and coming in and getting things wrong. He just thinks that's wrong. He thinks that's not okay, and that's why a guy like Frank Reich was fired mid-season, one and done, not even a full one and done. So it's going to be interesting to see when these interviews start happening. They're going to get some big names coming into the building and chatting, but who are they ultimately going to end up with? And I don't think it's good money, to answer your question, because you mentioned the whole Bryce Young thing. You might have a good quarterback there. We don't really know yet. I don't want to pin that against him yet, but they have traded away so many assets to get him to the point where it's like, how are you going to help him? How are you going to build around him? How are you going to improve as a team? Because you do have some cornerstones. You have Brian Burns. You have another defensive end, Derek Brown. You have him as well. And then you have the quarterback you think figured out. How can you support the rest of this team? The only way is going to be financially, which you're restricted there in the salary cap, And then, obviously the appeal of wanting to play for the Carolina Panthers, who right now don't have a head coach. So I think they are a little bit handcuffed right now in terms of their future in more ways than one, and that's really bad for their situation.
And can I also add this last portion of it, right? Because we do want to move on a little bit to maybe what it could be there and maybe who could be next on, in the Frank Reich seat of losing your gig. Hey, man, again, this is 4 head coaches that have been moved on from since, 2019? Is that the year?
I believe so.
Or it might be sooner, or it might be a longer period of time. But it's been, a very short leash. Like we just mentioned, this is the shortest head coaching tenure, not for an interim, since like the 70s, right? That also does not engender confidence. If you're coming in and taking a job, you want to know that there's some level of commitment to what you're doing and what you're trying to get done. And I understand, again, I want to make it clear. I don't think that Frank Reich was displayed anything that would give you any clear indication that he was the one for this job. However, and I know that there's people that are like, look, man, it makes sense. Once you realize that it's not the dude, when he's not the dude, move on from him, right? Don't waste time. There is some level of like messaging, and I understand it's not the cleanest thing when you're talking about this, where it's like, hey, throw some time away because of how it looks. However, like, appearances do matter, right? We try and pretend like appearances don't matter and things. They do matter. And with that being the case, if you want a good candidate, they're going to have to, your job has to be appealing to them as well. And what I imagine a lot of people will look up and see is an owner that does not have a level of patience for you. Yeah. And whether that is true or not, that is going to be the appearance. And so the best of, the hiring cycle out there, we can bring up Ben Johnson. We can bring up Shane Waldron, who's actually been really good offensively with the Cowboys' next opponent, the Seattle Seahawks. We can bring up, a golden boy, Bobby Slowick, who, hey, he's doing great things with a young quarterback that you would love to see happen with your young quarterback. I imagine that those guys have opportunities being hot commodities at any job that they want. And so if better jobs come up, those are going to appeal more. Now, names maybe like one that I think would be interesting, who has already interviewed for this job, might be ones that make a little sense. Can I interest you, Alec Medford, in the next Panthers head coach being the Chargers offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore?
Oh, man. I could totally see it. Because it felt like after Moore took that Chargers job, the way we had heard people talking about him still around the league, it's like it's inevitable that this guy is going to get a shot somewhere and very soon for a head coaching opportunity. Because, look, the Chargers have not put together a great season, not shockingly, because I think their head coach should be the next one getting the boot in Brandon Staley.
That's right.
But for the most part, the offense is still putting up Kellen Moore-like numbers for the most part.
Correct.
So I could totally see a team like the Carolina Panthers saying, hey, they made Justin Herbert look good. They can make this guy look good.
Wow,
and
the Justin Herbert disrespect. That's crazy. Made him look good is a little fault.
I just think that's how David Tepper thinks. I think he is so short-fused. I think he is so just quick with his observations that he's just going to be like, hey, Justin Herbert had a great year. Here's $4 million a season on a 4-year contract, Kellen Moore. I could totally see it.
Yeah, and I think that they go offensive because, again, the biggest job is trying to get the most out of that quarterback, I think. And so with that being the case, I think they go offensive. I think that Kellen Moore has been a guy who has been out here in these coaching interview streets and hasn't necessarily come up with one just yet. And so maybe he's a little bit more prone to this is the one that's out here. And that's why I go with that one. I don't know exactly what they do, and I'll be interested to see how that falls out. But I'm with you on the next guy being Brandon Staley, because the thing that I point to is that the fans are not on his side, which is one thing. The media is also now taking fully the perspective of the fans, where it's antagonistic, and he's getting out in these pressers talking crazy. And so with that being the case, right, like you are a play caller for a defense that is bad. You are also doing things that like the smart football people are looking at and they're like, why are you doing that? I don't see any allies for him is basically the short version of what I'm building up to. I don't see any allies for him ultimately. And he already did the thing where he had someone on his staff fall on their sword for him. Was it Joe Lombardi? Who was previously offensive coordinator. At this point, like there's no one else to fall besides you. And so with that being the case, thanks for stopping by the booth, Brandon Staley. Have a good time at your next destination.
And on that same sentiment, as we wrap this conversation up, if we're going to talk about, someone falling on the sword and then they are the next domino to fall, and then it's like, okay, you got to be the head coach, or you got to be, as the head coach, the next thing to fall. You got to look at the Washington Commanders as well. New ownership that is ready to kind of reface the organization and try to alter the perception nationally of this team. They think they might have their guy in Sam Howell, to which I say they might. They actually might have a dude in Sam Howell. I'm okay with saying that.
He is definitely a dude. I can say that.
He is
Sam Howell, a dude.
That is a statement. And I don't know if they have a dude in Ron Rivera, because you fired Jack Del Rio after the Cowboys absolutely smoked that defense. And
a little late, if you ask me.
It has been a little late. And that was kind of the one guy that could fall on the sword for Rivera for giving up all those points when Sam Howell was out here throwing 45 pass attempts a game and actually looking pretty good in some efforts. So that was the one guy that I was like, he's gone. If he's gone next, Rivera is surely the next domino to fall. And I don't think it happens during the season. I don't think any coaching firings happen the rest of the season. Honestly, I think we make it to the off season and then it's going to be one of those things.
And then we have the Black Monday.
Exactly. Yes, I think it's going to be right when the season ends. It's going to be, we're going to get 2 guys booted in one day. I could see that happening.
Okay. I think also with the Ron Rivera thing is his usefulness as what he was bringing to the organization is now past under the old guy, Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder, if you don't know, kind of operated like a deplorable human being.
Yeah.
And so what they needed was a good face to cover all that. And you know who's a good face? Ron Rivera, right? He was operated as a good face to be able to cover this. He even fought cancer, all that in between. Now that you have Dan Snyder out there, he has, kind of, had his battle with cancer, and he is on the other side of that for the time being, right? I understand how cancer works at times for folks. You look up, you're like, now we just need you to be a football coach. And, oh, yeah, you're not good at that. And so, yeah, I'm with you on that one as well.
So there you have it, a look at the coaching carousel as another domino falls after Josh McDaniels. It is Frank Reich out in Carolina. We'll see what's next for them and who is next to get that cardboard box laying in their chair when they go back to work the next day. And coming up next, we're going to keep the football conversation going. Take a trip around the NFL where, yes, in 2023, Joe Flacco might be back, and the Miami Dolphins get some shorthanded help. I'll tell you how next on The Fan.
Say you don't mind if we keep playing this, do you?
He struck him out looking. The Rangers have won the World
One more time.
Keep out of reach of children.
Hey everyone, Jane Slater from the NFL Network. Use it or lose it, folks. Your insurance company has been taking your money all year, so why not get something out of it? Book now at kissabledental.com. Teeth cleanings, whitening, they do it all. Even better, there are no surprises on your way out. Anyone else have anxiety about your post-visit bill? Well, don't. They want you to walk out happy with what you didn't pay. No headaches, no toothaches. Kissabledental.com. That's kissabledental.com. The Kissable journey starts today.
This segment of the Get Right is brought to you by Classic Chevrolet. Just announced Classic Chevrolet and Grapevine's one-time Trailblazer offload. A limited supply of new Trailblazer models will be sold direct to the public below market value. See them all at ClassicChevrolet.com. Don't wait. The best sell fast. Classic Chevrolet. Find new roads.
Back here on the Get Right, about to take a trip around the NFL, get you some of the latest updates on some injuries and some signings and whatnot around the league as we have Monday Night Football going on here in the studios. At half, it is an official mid-off, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo!
3-2-3, knotted up at a field goal apiece.
Prime time football, baby. 3-3.5. Get into it.
This is gross, nasty business. Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings are all knotted up at the half at a field goal apiece, and I can't believe I'm talking about this like I care. So
although, to be fair, right, we saw the Bears have one of them drives that they go smooth down the field, and then the field goal, the kicker just shanks it.
Yeah.
And so, when we talk about mid, not everybody on the team is mid, but they're looking around at the rest of them like, hey, can you help me out?
The Bears are really good about that, just perfect drives, and then when they have to score, they're like, nah, I'm good.
Shout out to everybody that, due to proximity or familial relations, is attached to one or both of these teams. Condolences, sincerely.
Yeah, I'm thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts and prayers.
That's
Let's
right.
take a trip around the NFL here on the Get Right, where we have a few interesting nuggets coming out of the NFL tonight. And let's start in Cleveland, where we're talking about the coaching carousel. How about a quarterback carousel out there for the Browns, as Dorian Thompson-Robinson is in concussion protocol after taking a big hit in the loss at Denver. So he is likely not going to play this coming week. So who do you call? Joe Flacco looks to be in line. There is a, quote, very real chance that he starts this week, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. Cleveland signed the 2013 Super Bowl MVP last week as protection in case DTR either flopped or got hurt, and now they might actually need him.
Just you saying 2013 Super Bowl MVP is so hilarious to me, because he really did just have one month. He's like, I just got to do 1 month of great play and I'm set. And he has been, right? He got his payday. He's still out here getting out here, and I don't know how good that is, getting out here playing football, but I mean, they'll give him checks for it.
Yeah.
And so God bless him. God bless Joe Flacco, who otherwise was just like, a fine quarterback. Made sure that he had 1 month of elite play, and he was like, we're good. We're set. We're good forever. And now he gets that, get out here. And you know what's funny enough? Joe Flacco, if he is any semblance of decent, which I probably should just go back to when he played for the Jets and find out that, he probably isn't. But if he's any semblance of decent, that's kind of what the Browns need, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Like, the defense is going to handle most of this. If you can make this look okay, then you'll be in a pretty good place.
And you mentioned the defense, a quick note on that as well. Myles Garrett was seen leaving the locker room after the game last week with a bit of a shoulder issue.
Right, I forgot about that. Well, never mind. Cancel Christmas. It's over.
Yes, he was saying that he felt a pop in his shoulder and couldn't really lift it very far. He was leaving the locker room in a sling, but according to the NFL Network, he is said to be okay and should be good to go for their next matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. So good news there. Bad news probably for the Cleveland Browns is that DTR is hurt and in concussion protocol, probably not going to go this week, meaning Joe Flacco may get the nod there. Coach Kevin Stefanski offered no clues today after practice heading into this week's game against the Rams, but it appears that the 38-year-old Flacco will be his best option.
I do feel bad for some of these quarterbacks that are like, and I can't get a call back. We still running Flacco out here. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Joe Flacco in 2023 in December, nonetheless, almost kind of. Elsewhere in the NFL.
I love how quickly you just abandoned that. You're like, yeah, fine, whatever.
Yeah, I wanted to be December so bad. I'm sorry. I got a lot
Don't
of
we
great
all?
things.
Right?
Yes.
Don't we all?
Got
Text in. Truckwreck.com. Text line 877-881-1053. Would you rather continue to be November or would you rather be December right now? Let's see if we can make this amendment. Let's consider the text line change.org. Let's see if we can get enough signatures.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
All right.
After November.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair play because we're after Food's birthday.
I love that. Yeah, after the 26th of November, it's just straight into December. December 1st, 1B, 1C, whatever the math checks out to be. I'm okay with it. Elsewhere around the NFL, we did have some news that the Miami Dolphins will be without Jalen Phillips for a while, so they added a big name, but they will still be shorthanded as they signed Jason Pierre-Paul off of the Saints practice squad and onto the 53-man roster. So JPP gets another shot on an active roster.
You know you're wrong for that, right?
I mean, I'm technically right.
It is the best kind of correct, but
so
that's real nasty.
I listened to the show. Okay. And he's a Florida native, so he lands in Miami, just a couple of hours away from home. So not too bad of a situation to join a pretty good Dolphins team that's having a lot of fun out there, just reigning terror on the NFC East, except for the good teams.
That's right.
And we can see if he could be any resemblance of help, as they will be without the talented young Jalen Phillips out there in Miami. Also, an interesting note, the Eagles just kind of woke up and decided to cut their edge rusher Derek Barnett, who was a former high draft pick of theirs, and he got claimed by the Texans today. So I really like that pickup because you know who coaches that football team down there in Houston? That's D'Amico Ryans. He's really good at, teaching defense and running defenses out there. So I really like that. That's a sneaky good waiver claim pickup for the Texans. But the Eagles out here making some roster moves, and we also heard from Josina Anderson that their interest in Shaq Leonard is essentially growing by the day.
Well, yeah. I mean, what you saw in that game against the Bills, I believe one of those late drives that the Bills had was basically entirely a y'all don't got no linebackers drive, where they were just like, we were going to terrorize you over the middle, running the football and throwing over the middle, because they don't, right? Nakobe Dean was basically the extent of the linebackers that you can trust to play for the Eagles, and he has been injured. And so, yeah, no, they definitely needed some linebacker play. And so, yeah, that is a NFL caliber linebacker that the Colts just didn't want to pay at the same level as he had previously had signed that contract for. Under a more reasonable contract, there's a reason why there's all these teams that are looking at him like, hey, would you like to come through?
Yeah.
And yes, 903, that was definitely a shot at JPP made by Alec Medford.
It's just a statement.
Alec Medford.
Alec on the radio on Twitter.
There you go.
Check me out there if you want to slander. No, like, for the Eagles, it would be a great move, and it makes too much sense to the point where, in case you missed the reporting from multiple outlets earlier today, and really bleeding into yesterday, was that Shaq Leonard will be visiting the Dallas Cowboys tomorrow officially to come check things out in Frisco. And if you're the Cowboys, knowing that the Eagles have so many issues at linebacker, you almost want to play keep away.
Yeah, but I don't know that you can't. Like, I'm not sure if they're going to be in a place where they're like, we need to give him everything he wants so he can not go in. Yeah, I don't think that that's the level of signing that they're trying to make. Because in a way, this is still a depth signing, right? Like, you have two starting linebackers that you feel good about. And then you have Rashaan Evans, who you probably are okay with if you need to step in for certain instances. So I don't know that they're going to be like, yo, back up the Brinks truck, right? And so I think Stephen Jones was actually talking about that earlier today on KNC, and the idea being like, look, man, these guys, especially some of them in certain situations, they want to go and see whatever, all the offers are available to them. And they're going to respect that, but they're going to try and do what they can and, accentuate the things that they can, like, the Frisco and the Star and what it means being in the, playing for the Cowboys and what it means being able to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, like all those things, right? So they'll do what they can. Can I go back a little bit? Because you did mention Myles Garrett in that shoulder.
Yes.
And I did want to point out that apparently he didn't suffer any structural damage. So when I did talk about that, at least there is that portion of it where there's no structural damage to the shoulder. Now, where that goes from there, like how much time is recovered and how much is necessary for him to look like, the bona fide bulldozer that he does all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like I imagine that's somewhat up in the air, like what level of play that he's able to do. But he did say, quote, "I've played through things that I should have sidelined me before. I'm going to continue to fight, and I'm going to do what's best for the team and for myself. But we have high hopes for the season, and what we want to do, nothing like this is going to hold us back or me back, going to find a way to respond." So I guess you anticipate, if you want to take Myles Garrett at his word, and I would, that Myles Garrett's going to keep being out here and doing what he does.
And it's actually a good point that you bring up there, because these shoulder injuries with defensive ends and pass rushers have really plagued them in terms of quantity, but the quality of play for some of these higher-end players that have suffered them and continued to play. We even saw it as recently as a couple years ago with DeMarcus Lawrence, where he had to get the harness on the shoulder, and then you just saw the motor was there. It was just the strength was not fully there.
And in addition, there's strength, the hand fighting, like if there's any level of range of mobility issues with the arm, or range of motion rather, that hand fighting and all those techniques, like there's a reason why those things are drilled upon. Those are necessary. And so if any of that is lost, I wonder what it looks like. But I guess also Myles Garrett is the type of dude who has the strength where he could just run through you at times.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what it continues to be. And the defense ain't elite in the way that it is right now just because of Myles Garrett. He's a big part.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but there's other portions of that. So I'm interested to see how that continues to look going forward.
And the last thing around the NFL real quick here, I just want to give flowers to the Jaguars front office, because their offensive tackle Cam Robinson suffered a knee injury on Sunday, and he has a recovery time of 3 to 6 weeks, making him an IR candidate. Remember when they just woke up one day and randomly traded for Ezra Cleveland, and everyone was like, how did you get him for that price? And it just turned out that the Vikings were like, yeah, we think we have options that have longer term contracts than him, so we'll ship him out for a mid-round pick. So kudos to the Jaguars for making those heads-up plays. I love when teams make under-the-radar moves like that end up helping in a major way, and Cleveland has been really good for them this year out there in Jacksonville. So that's a big blow for them, but they should be fine. And they're starting to look a little bit better, are those Jaguars, with Trevor Lawrence and company. So
yeah, I feel like we should call it, was it Josh Allen and company? Because Josh Allen, defensive pass rusher, Josh Allen, has been a monster.
Yeah.
Like the whole defense is like, they didn't really make a lot of changes when it comes to personnel outside of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Except those guys just got better. Like
Exactly.
they just got better over an additional year. And now that is a defense-led team, as much as we want to talk about Trevor Lawrence.
It's cool to see when teams just buy into the development process of their guys, and it pays off. And it's exactly what's happening in Jacksonville. That's your trip around the NFL. Some different things going on in terms of personnel, and I can't believe I have to say that Joe Flacco might be back on an NFL field in 2023.
You know you're wrong for that 903. They texted in, JPP should definitely give that defense a pop. Leave that man alone, okay? Can you not do that?
That defense is fireworks now, man.
All right.
All right. It's the Get
Send us
Right
the break.
here on 105.3 The Fan. And coming up next, truckrook.com text line 877-881-1053 to answer this question. What is your biggest concern with the Dallas Mavericks at this point in the season? Let us know on the truckrook.com text line, Twitch, and YouTube. We'll do that next here on The Fan.
Always a welcome sign for this clubhouse. Featuring breaking sports news, inside info, opinion, with laughs along the way. Turn it on, leave it on. The Fan and the Odyssey app.
It's easy to think all money managers are pretty much the same. But at Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
Different? How? old home in less than a week and for way more than we thought. So we got a boat.
Buy your next home before you sell. Get a free no-obligation cash offer from Orchard.com. That's Orchard.com.
Don't wait for Black Friday. At DFW Security, it's Black November. Get DFW Security's deal of the year on smart security with 3 cameras, installation, and phone app. DFW Security's technology is unmatched. Get it at DFWSecurity.com.
DFWSecurity.com.
Your turn it on, leave it on. Home of America's team is 105.3 The Fan.
Solo, baby.
KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas Fort Worth.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
From our fan studios secured by DFWSecurity.com, it's time for the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan.
It's hour number 2 of the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan, your favorite live and local sports content here in the mighty Metroplex. Alec Medford and Reggie Atatula.
Yup.
Rigo Mendoza holding things down for you, the Tolo, the Turn It On, Leave It On listener. We appreciate you so very much for doing just that here tonight. The truckwreck.com text line is 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053 to get involved in the conversation. We are also
on that text line. A lot of folks, I mean, it's been everybody voting for December except for one individual from the 682 said November because January I ship out to the Marines and I'm kind of nervous. I feel like that's fair.
Yeah, I'll allow that.
Yeah, I feel like that's very fair.
I'd be nervous too.
Shout out to you and deciding to serve the country.
Yeah,
that's dope.
Shout out to you, and shout out to the Twitch and YouTube as well. Dallas Fan Cam on Twitch or 105.3 The Fan on YouTube, where you can get involved, especially in this segment. What's your biggest concern for the Dallas Mavericks at this point in the season? 877-881-1053. Let us know what you think is worrisome for these Mavs, as we talked about it a little bit, myself and the fan phenom Blake Elliott yesterday in the morning time, about after that Clippers game, just some of the things we saw, and it's kind of the underlying themes for me of what concerns me about this Mavs team as they sit at 10-6. So we're only talking about 16 games here into the regular season, but if you're keeping track, they got eliminated from the in-season tourney.
There's one more game to be played in the group play, but they cannot move on to the next round. That quarterfinal game that will be happening on this 4th or the 5th of December. But so they'll finish out with the Houston Rockets tomorrow evening, and we'll talk about that on the Get Right here as well. But yeah, that's the last of the in-season tournament games for them this season.
Real quick aside, how do you feel about the courts for the most part?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've said this, is that I understand what they're trying to do with the gaudy courts. I'd appreciate if the design looked better. The thing that really gets me is more the actual make of the courts. Yeah. The fact that they kind of did them quick, and ultimately you've seen the ways in which they've had some issues, right? They've been slick. They've been, had some wrong dimensions at times. But other than that, I'm like, it is what it is. It's one of those things that it's a gambit that the NBA is want to do. You remember that time when they were doing jerseys with sleeves? You remember that? Remember those abominations? They did those for a little bit, looked up and they were like, oh, yeah, people don't really like that, huh? Yeah. And more importantly, the players didn't really like that. All right, we'll move away from it. And so I feel like being a fan of the NBA, you've seen these things come and go. And I feel like, the court thing will either get better or they'll figure out a different way to get across what they're trying to get across.
The sleeves on the jerseys, man. Good Lord. It has been worse.
I thought the sleeves were fine.
Of course you did.
Well, it's your God-given right as an American to be wrong.
It's an opinion. It's an opinion.
God bless you for that.
And opinions are allowed.
The Heat ones were okay.
No. So the question is, what is your concern with the Mavs at this point in the season?
Some things that I would allow you to point to as Luka Doncic, if you remember, you mentioned that Clippers game early on, and he tries to poke out a steal from James Harden, and it seemed like he kind of hit his left thumb, I believe, if I remember correctly, or
yes,
and so
sounds correct.
I mean, I know it was one of those thumbs. I'm trying to remember which one it was as I'm looking at it, but at least he will play tomorrow night. And yes, it is his left thumb. They tested it, and it seems like it is okay. Portions of Monday's practice he did with a wrap on his thumb, and it was just diagnosed as a sprain. Right? He had X-rays at halftime. Ultimately, he made his way back to the bench. Played some more in that game, but now he has a sprain in his left thumb. Also, don't forget Derek Lively has a back contusion after falling against the Lakers. He missed that Clippers game, and I believe he will also miss the Rockets game, but then after that, we'll see what happens then. I guess what's the Grizzlies coming to town later in the week. But yes, those are things that you could probably point to and say, ooh, a little concerning, right? Once you start having major pieces of your team dealing with injuries, small as they may be.
Yeah, and the conversation for really the past couple of seasons has been depth behind those guys. So feel a little bit better about it this year, more so than last year, but still the key contributors, especially Derek Lively early on, has been doing everything you hoped he could, maybe not expected, but everything you hoped, because I didn't have the expectations too high. He's been really good. We'll get to him here in just a minute. But yeah, the injuries have been something that's worried me. We've got some reaction on the truckwreck.com text line as well from the 972 defense.
Great answer. Good answer.
And I think that's really kind of everyone's first answer is just across the board defense. But part of that has been, I'm trying to find who said it so I can give all the credit that is due from the 817. And you were kind of talking about this earlier, I believe, before crosstalk from the 817. My concern is that we need to rely too much on a rookie. And talking about Derek Lively. The fact that he's played so well, but we didn't know that we would need him this much this early, and you're starting to see it now that he's missed a couple of games, that he's definitely bringing an element that you didn't really have, and you're starting to miss in a short-term injury.
I'll contend that you did know that you needed it this early, this fast, right? I think you did know that. It's one of the reasons why it was such an important thing. It's one of the reasons why the offseason, the big thing was you need to get a center. And to the point where even drafting Derek Lively did not feel like enough of an answer. The problem is that he can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're seeing defensively where the deficiencies of the rest of the defense as currently constituted is still showing up when Derek Lively's off the court or when he doesn't play. And even sometimes against really good teams while he's still on the court. And so you need more than simply him. And so the idea being, I think he's capable of handling a lot of what you've thrown at him. It's just, that's not enough to buoy the team and the defense. And so with that being the case, that's one of the concerns for sure, is that's the major defensive player. And outside of that, you're not getting a ton, with all due respect to Grant Williams, with all due respect to Derrick Jones Jr., with all due respect to, we can name these different players that offer something, but it's not enough to the point of, I mentioned, right? The on-off splits, the on numbers when it comes to offense, defense. The net rating ultimately is damn near neutral. Let's start that one more time. The numbers, the net rating is damn near neutral when Luka Doncic is on the court. And that's wild to consider, because Luka Doncic is an offensive master. Now, one of the things that comes in on the text line from the 817, from the, let's see, I just lost it. From the 214, they said Luka throwing games away, needs to be more aggressive in the paint. I don't know if I want to say that he's throwing games away, but that aggressive in the paint, I think tracks to most of the team. One thing I've noticed is that look, this is a modern offense, and particularly one with the Mavericks where you're going to have to knock down shots. Shooting is going to be paramount in this. However, I think that good teams, particularly ones that can, withstand poor shooting stretches, also need to be able to get to the basket. Need to apply pressure to the paint and to the rim, right? And with that being the case, you have Luka Doncic, you have Kyrie Irving. Those are the guys you kind of think of as pressure creators. But even then, sometimes it feels like they're getting downhill and they're not getting shots at the rim. They're getting shots near the rim and still having to go over the top of guys at times. And that's one of the things that concerns me, is because you've seen a stretch over the last 5 or so games where the shooting hasn't been as nice as, you wanted it to be. And so even in instances where you play, a Lakers team that isn't very good offensively, and you hold them to pretty low scoring, you also then have low scoring, and that's a close game, right? You barely put any points up against the Clippers, and that game is a foregone conclusion because it's just your offense looks nasty, right? Those are the things that I have concerns about, because if the offense is just Kyrie goes off, Luka goes off, Tim Hardaway Jr. goes off, and there's your points, I have some concerns.
So my question to that is, because I think that's a great point about getting to the rim and not around it, is that solution in-house? So, is that something that can be figured out, that can be coached, that can be taught? Because clearly, when it comes to personnel, that's something that's highly scrutinized with this Mavs team. Is not, you talked about it with Derek Lively. There's guys, but guys that can't do it alone. You have to have someone behind them. Is there an answer getting to the rim, whether it's coaching, whether it's one specific guy stepping up? Is there any way to fix that, or is that something that you have to just kind of lay down and say, look, we don't have it here, we need to find it?
No, I think that you look at Luka Doncic, you look at Kyrie Irving, I think they have the capabilities of doing it. It might just need to be a little bit more intentional. And with Kyrie, the tough part about it is his diet of shots has always been difficult shots because he's great at them. But the tough part about it is, hey, if you're great at those, you'll be great at also easier shots. And so maybe making a concerted effort to look for those a little bit more might be helpful. And then obviously all of that is made easier when you are making shots. And so it kind of ends up being, two things that go hand in hand. But yeah, no, I obviously the big one I think is defense, is ultimately what we're going to keep coming back to.
One thing that I was thinking about yesterday, and it was after that Clippers game, just kind of looking back at it after watching it, 107-88 Clippers over the Mavs, and I'm thinking, man, nothing out of the box jumps at you outside of Paul George for the Clippers,
who has been their mainstay all season.
Absolutely. He has been phenomenal for them, but Kawhi started off the game 0 for 9. James Harden made 2 threes, and that's about it. For me, it's the situational basketball, and that's really broad. I know that sounds very just kind of random and
very
out there,
vague.
but
That's right.
Very vague, but it comes down to, matchups for me and whatnot. In these situations, it feels like they're not taking advantage of some of the better situations that they find themselves in, whether it's defensively, offensively, but like in this Clippers game, whenever two of the more talented guys on the roster, it's not a shot at anyone else. It's just when you have a guy like Kawhi Leonard and James Harden on the floor at the same time, whenever they're not doing much of anything, you're still getting cooked in the paint by Ivica Zubac. You're still getting cooked by guys like Terrence Mann, who put up his highest points per game or points in the game this season. There's guys like Norman Powell giving you 15 off the bench.
Oh, no, Norm was possessed.
Yeah, he was possessed. And it feels vague, and it's really hard to put into words, but it just feels like whenever the Mavs are gifted something, they almost can't live in prosperity with these things. That's my best way of putting it. They can't handle prosperity whenever these things are given to them. They were fully rested going into this game, and it just felt like, okay, this might be a somewhat even matchup while the Clippers are still trying to figure things out, and the Mavs offense is still looking like what we think it should look like, and you get a bit of a gift, and an off night for two of the best players on the team. And then defensively, I think we kind of already hit on it. That's really the mainstay in this conversation, is that things need to get better in the paint. Things need to get better underneath the rim. And really, it comes down to an effort thing out of some of these guys. But I do think that you're starting to see the reality of the Mavs team, because they started off so hot to the point where I wanted to drink the Kool-Aid, but I said, let's pump the brakes a little bit and wait. And now you're starting to see the true reality of this Mavericks team, is that they never fixed the defense. They tried, and they did good things to try. It's just like that point you mentioned earlier. There needs to be other guys that do it too.
Sure. The effort thing is an interesting one, because we can talk about the roster and things that are necessary there, and that's not something you're going to get done in the short term. Like maybe you get a trade done before the trade deadline, and that helps in some way, right? This is not a team that is fully formed in that way. But the effort is the thing that you can maybe address now. The connectedness, the being on the same page and all pulling in the same direction are the things that you can help to maybe make some level of change when it comes to defense, and make it so that against the better teams, like you're talking about, like the Clippers, who in theory ostensibly is one of the better teams, even though they've had a little bit of a tough go of it since they've adjusted their team and brought in James Harden, right?
Yeah.
What you saw is that that's still a team that, even if things aren't going well with a few of their players, they still know how to attack your defense and make some things happen. Now, of course, you kind of help them by not making shots. But with that being the case, right, you got to make it harder. You got to make it more difficult, not just on teams that aren't all that great. Right. And if we want to do this comparison, Mavs to Cowboys, I think that there's a little bit of crossover there. Now against the better teams, you need to have ways to make this difficult, if for no other reason, to make them work harder to get to some of these things. Right. You can't give them the cookies easy. Right. Make them work for it. And the tough part about it is that there's a lot of effort necessary defensively, then also offensively. But defense has got to be part of it, right? You can have an elite defense or elite offense and a defense that is not good, and ultimately you're gonna sputter. And so, Derek Lively, someone mentioned Derek Lively's health is a concern. I think he's young, and he fell on his back and he has a contusion, right? That tracks, that just needs to get heal and get better. I imagine that'll be fine largely once he gets back. Obviously, in the time that he's out, problem. But everybody pulling in the same direction, and now your defensive rotations are clicking, and those types of things make it more difficult on the other teams. Because I understand there's probably roster limitations, but you need to max out what you do have. And obviously, again, 16 games in, it's not going to be all the way there, but I'd like it to be further along than it is right now.
The Mavericks will host the Houston Rockets tomorrow at 7:30. We will keep you up to date on that matchup, as the Rockets have a pretty good defense out of nowhere down there in Houston, so it should be at least a somewhat interesting matchup between those two. Again, 7:30 tip tomorrow. We will keep you updated on that. And coming up next on the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan, we have 14 crazy facts from Week 12. And yes, we are going to actually talk on these airwaves in a positive light about Tommy DeVito. We'll do that next on The Fan.
We have you covered, Stars fans, with exclusive content from two-time Stanley Cup champion Greg Ludwig and NHL reporter Sean Shapiro. It's Spits. And waterproofing on 105.3 The Fan.
This segment on 105.3 The Fan is brought to you by Frankel & Frankel. Life is unpredictable and accidents happen. Frankel & Frankel are the go-to attorneys for car and truck wrecks in the DFW. And if your loved one have been injured in an accident, contact Frankel & Frankel for a free consultation at truckwreck.com or call 214 or 817-333-3333.
Back on the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan, about to give you some crazy facts from this week of NFL action, courtesy of CBS Sports. That in just a moment. Alec Bedford and Reggie Atatula with you until 11 o'clock tonight. The truckwreck.com text line is 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053 to get involved with the show here tonight. In Monday Night Football action, it is currently 9-3 in favor of the Chicago Bears early in the fourth quarter. And if you are enjoying this game, you should be ashamed of yourself.
What? Not ashamed of yourself?
Yep. I said what I said.
Wow.
Really makes you want to shed the tears.
Yeah, this is
tears.
This is absolutely one that makes me want to cry, because why do we have so many bad primetime matchups this year?
I mean, there's a lot of bad teams.
That's a great point.
Although, they put this mechanism of flexing in, and it just feels like they don't be flexing enough. Like, flex more. How about that? How about flex more? Like, we don't have to see every team on national TV. We really don't.
Life lessons with Reggie. Flex more. Just flex more.
Yeah, that works in larger situations, but also in this very particular situation that I'm talking about.
So let's talk about some crazy facts from this week of NFL action. Week 12 will be in the books after 12 minutes and 40 seconds of regulation here on Monday Night Football. So some of the things that we saw pointed out by CBS Sports. There is a first time for everything. The Eagles' win over the Bills marked the first time in NFL history that multiple players finished a game with at least 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns. Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts both pulled that off during Philly's overtime win. And really, for Jalen Hurts, it was a tale of two halves. For Josh Allen, it was for the most part kind of what we expect to see from him on a night in, night out basis. And it was a fun matchup in the end. We got the extra football, and sadly, Eagles get the win. But both quarterbacks really in that second half were really nice.
Yeah, more than anything, I was surprised that this particular stat had not happened before in NFL history. Right? Like, we've had, really great quarterbacks that not only can throw the football but also run the football. And it's kind of surprising that this is the first time that you have that. But I guess it also highlights the fact that the quarterback position is fully changed. Like, we've fully gotten to that place. For a few years, I've held the belief that in order to play quarterback in the modern NFL, mobility is no longer like a nice thing to have. It's now like a necessity.
Yeah.
And I think you're starting to see that it's incredibly necessary, particularly with, the way that, offense is down, the way the defenses have decided to make it more and more difficult on offenses to pass the football and making them take things underneath and those types of things. And you see the benefit of having all of a quarterback that's capable of making things happen with their legs, not only extending plays but also picking up yards and touchdowns on the ground. That was one of those games that was a good game, but also still didn't reach the heights of it, at least not for me personally.
Yeah.
But hey, shout out to those two players having that happen, and shout out to Josh Allen, who's got to hate overtime games at this point.
And that's actually one of the facts here
on
CBS
right.
Sports. The Bills quarterback Josh Allen has played in a total of 6 overtime games in his career, and he is 0-6 following the loss to the Eagles. That's right. He has never won an overtime game in his NFL career.
Including that one game, which serves as proof of concept of, this dude is a monster who's here to take over the rest of the league. Remember that one time where the Bills played the Chiefs?
Yeah.
And that game was a monster of a game. Those dudes were hooping both ways, back and forth. I don't believe in the quarterback wins thing. So the idea that he is 0-6 and overtime wins, I'm I don't know what to do with that per se. But what that does point to is, the Bills, they are just continuing that long-held Bills tradition of getting so close, so close. They got to be sick up there. And also, Sean McDermott, hello, what's happening with you, my boy? Because this is the tough thing about it. You could look around and have very many reasons to be Sean McDermott's probably a good coach. In fact, I think that a lot of their issues have to deal with the organization, the front office, because there's a lot of ways in which they've kind of just let this team get old quietly and not continue to stock up the reserves to prepare for the future.
Yeah.
That being said, the GM ain't front and center. You are, my boy. Like what? When people start getting angry, and oh boy, they will get angry soon, right? You've already gotten rid of both coordinators on either side of the ball. Ken Dorsey, obviously, recently, and then what's my guy who was the defensive coordinator last year that they got rid of, right?
Yeah.
Hey man, once you get rid of defense coordinators, there's no more coaches to go for except for you, and so. Shout out to Sean McDermott because you might lose your job while being good at football.
Some notes on the quarterbacks from that matchup on Sunday, specifically Josh Allen. He did hit a historical mark. The Bills quarterback threw for 339 yards while also rushing for 81 yards, marking the 8th time in his career that he's thrown for at least 300 yards with 50 yards rushing. That's now tied with Steve Young for the most 3,500 games in NFL history.
I love Josh Allen.
He's different, man. When he is on, he is on.
And when he's off, it's hilarious.
Yes, it is actually hilarious, and nobody talks about it.
Oh, no, come on. You can't say we've talked about it.
We try. We definitely try because,
we talked about that a good amount.
There's another quarterback that gets talked about more when he makes mistakes. Speaking of the quarterback play in that matchup, Jalen Hurts with 2 rushing touchdowns against the Bills he acquired 11 games in his career with multiple rushing touchdowns, which is a new NFL record. Hurts had previously been tied with Cam Newton for that record. So multiple rushing touchdowns in his career in a single game. 11 games now. Breaks Cam Newton's record. So we're starting to see those Cam Newton records that were so just wild and nuts, and some of the benchmarks he had start to get covered up. And it's kind of wild that we're starting to see those things fall down. Because I remember watching Cam Newton when he was fresh out of college. It was just like, this is wild. This is nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah, it's just a reminder, man. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Things progress. It's one of the reasons why comparing things from different eras is like just too tough of a proposition. I mean, we could do it for the fun of it, but understand that it is a really difficult conversation to have when you compare versus eras because, look, folks see what happens. They get better from what happens, and that pushes the sport forward.
Talking about that game, specifically the Eagles as a whole, thanks to their win over the Bills, the Eagles have now joined a rare club. They're just the 4th team in NFL history to start 10-1 in consecutive seasons. The Eagles now join the Bears in 41 and 42, the Dolphins in 72 and 73, and the Colts in 2005 and 6. The 3 previous teams all won at least one Super Bowl title.
Ain't nobody trying to hear that.
I know.
Thanks. Well, ain't nobody trying to hear that.
I just like chaos.
Moving on.
Moving on. Let's talk about a quarterback that we do care about just because he's fun to talk about. His name is Tommy DeVito. For the Giants. With the Giants' win over the Patriots, Tommy DeVito became just the 5th undrafted rookie in the common draft era to win at least 2 of his first 3 starts. He also became the first undrafted rookie since 1966 to record a passer rating of 100 or higher in consecutive starts. So after the Cowboys had him seeing ghosts, he's kind of starting to work a little bit. You know, he's not burning the world down, but he's actually helping out the team now, which is pretty cool to see.
Look, good for him. And shout out to the Commandos and the Patriots for helping this along. The Patriots, mind you, losing 10-7 in that game. So, we're not going to pretend like Tommy DeVito was out here balling or anything.
It's my MVP.
That being said, when Tommy DeVito is brought up, this is the one thing that I want to discuss.
Oh, boy.
Why do we all feel so comfortable doing this stereotype stuff when it comes to the Italians? Like, why? You know what I mean? Like, I understand. Tommy DeVito and his family are all just like big old caricatures. Shout out to them, right? Shout out there to them for embracing this, having fun with it. Awesome, right? But this, has any of us considered like this might be a they can do it, but we can't thing? Because I'm here for let's have our fun. I feel uncomfortable. I look around, I'm like, hey, I feels like we're leaning a little too far into this with the voices and the hand gesture and everything. I'm like, hey, look. I also understand that it is fun. I'm just like, hey, man, sometimes not all the fun is for us, per se.
Yeah, maybe it's part of a club that we just cannot relate to, and I fully agree. I didn't even think about it until you mentioned it earlier, that we have just taken this like as a collective whole fan base of the NFL, just taken it and run with it. And
Well, it's not even the NFL, like it's society. We're like, if there is one stereotype that we're all like, that's good, is the and I just want to know, was like there a meeting that I missed? Was it well before my time? Like, did we just all agree the one place where we can have some fun is the Italians? Like, just let me know, I guess.
Well, Tommy DeVito is totally leaning into it as well, and he has a bit of a celebration that he does with his scoring plays and big plays. He does the little, the hand gesture if you're seeing on the Twitch or YouTube. The little, everyone knows it as like the fancy Italian thing that you do. I don't even know
I like
how
to call it the bellissimo, but it's probably like that's a hot piece of pie is usually where people will go with it. And again, I feel very uncomfortable doing all this. I apologize to the necessary parties.
See, and everybody that has the video or doesn't have the video in front of them knows exactly what Reggie just did just by saying that. And Tommy DeVito was asked by the media about it after practice today. Just, what is it? What does it mean? And here's how it went.
What would you call it? A high what? A high vibe?
No, that's a high. No.
Well, what's the word for that?
There is no word for it. I don't think there's a word for it. Is there a word for it if you type? Usually when you type in an emoji on like iMessage, like it'll pop up. I don't know if there's like a. At
this point, I think it's the DeVito.
It might be, but we'll just keep on rolling with it.
It's just the high.
Have fun with that.
Parla Italiano?
Oh, man. Yeah, we should just call it the DeVito at this point, I guess.
I mean,
I don't know any other term for it other than the.
I clearly don't have a good answer for it either. So shout out to Tommy DeVito for having so damn much fun with it. Shout out to the DeVitos for enjoying this. Like, this has got to be a crazy ride for him in particular.
You want to talk about the Patriots and their ugliness?
No, but let's do it anyways.
The Patriots' way seems to be the wrong way. The Patriots are the first NFL team in 30 years to lose back-to-back games despite surrendering 10 or fewer points in each game. Not only did they lose 10-7 this week, but they also lost 10-7 to the Colts back in Week 10.
Yeah, man, this Bill Belichick thing is going to end at the end of the season, isn't it? Which is crazy because, like,
so wild to think.
In some ways, he is being, like, we started the season, and again, people jumped up with this early, and I understand why, but I was like, look, man, that dude has a level of tenure in these things that it feels like he's somewhat unassailable. Oh, no, it's very assailable, right? I don't even know if that's the way that I could say that, but ultimately, it's looking very assailable for him, right? And so with this being the case, ooh, it looks bad. It looks real bad. And at the very worst, like, he can't make the decisions when it comes to, like, player personnel no more, right? And I don't know if he wants to keep doing that job if he doesn't have that, but it's bad.
Yeah, it feels like the ultimatum has to be, hey, let us hire a GM or we need to move on from this whole thing because, yeah, the player personnel stuff. I just love, it goes back to that video of Sean McVay when they had no draft picks on day one a couple years ago and the Patriots took Cole Strange and McVay goes, I thought he was going to be there for us in the fourth.
Yep. Not been looking good for your man, Bill.
Yeah.
And shout out to everybody who wants to do the Tom Brady carry them because what can anyone say in response at this point?
Yeah, there is no argument anymore. Even more Patriots ugliness. The NFL teams are 49-2 this season when allowing 10 or fewer points, which breaks down like this. The Patriots are 1-2, while the rest of the league is 48-0.
Gross.
It's just gross.
I would like to jump around because this is now sad at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely sad. Well, let's talk about some good things. Shout out to the Steelers, man. They fired their offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, and they finally hit 400 yards of offense in their first game without him. It's the first time in 59 games that they have amassed 400 yards of offense.
You know, this is like you don't show up to one of the get-togethers with your friends, and then you see pictures where they look more fun. They look like they're having the most fun that they've ever had. And you're like, oh, so I was the problem?
Yeah.
And for Matt Canada, yes. Yes, you were, dude. You were the issue.
He was absolutely the problem, and I feel good for Steelers fans and for Mike Tomlin specifically because he had to put up with that, and he needs best coach in the NFL.
You say he had to put up with that? That was his. Like, he hired him.
I know, but like
he hired him and only now decided to fire him, even though for the longest time it was very apparent that he should have done so.
I'm thinking of the human element. You know, that's your boy. You got to roll with him. You got to defend him after the game, and it's like, how long can I keep doing this? And then it finally broke, and he said, look, I can't do this no more. First game without him. How about we put up 400 yards of offense for the first time since week 2 of 2020?
We're doing so great without you.
Yes. It's just amazing. And then CJ Stroud has been phenomenal this year. He set a rookie record with 304 passing yards against the Jaguars, became the first rookie in NFL history to throw for 300 yards and more in 4 consecutive games. CJ Stroud has been awesome.
Before we go, I do want to mention this one. Justin Tucker is no longer the most accurate kicker in NFL history.
What?
He missed a 44-yard field goal against the Chargers, which dropped his career accuracy from to 89.93%. And that's number 2 on the NFL's all-time accuracy list, behind Young Waku, the kicker for the Falcons, who has made 90% of his field goals. So Justin Tucker, not bad per se, but does look kind of broken. Like he's missed a few kicks that were previously thought to be like gimmies with Justin Tucker. Not even like hey, this is a really long kick. Just like, hey, why you used to make those all the time. And so just reminder that nothing lasts forever. Everything comes to an end. Eat at Arby's.
That's I can't even move on from that.
Mm-hmm.
That's maybe we have to talk about it on the other side. Some wild facts from week 12 of the NFL season. Lots of crazy things going down this week. And let's keep the craziness going, because coming up next, I get to do this for the first time. It's sharing time next on the Get Right.
Sports with lots of laughs mixed in. Sean and RJ, the KNC Masterpiece, G-Bag Nation, and the Get Right. Turn it on, leave it on. 105.3 The Fan and the Odyssey app.
Hey everyone, Jane Slater from the NFL Network, and I'm here with Jeremy from Kissable Dental. You know the saying, use it or lose it. It's November, and that means your benefits are about to expire.
That's right, Jane. so you only need one tool instead of two. And the X-Lock grinder switches wheels up to 5 times faster than standard grinders when you need to change tasks in a hurry. Bosch tools take care of the job and you. Bosch Tools, what hard workers deserve. Learn more at BoschTools.com.
Do you know that during this time of year, blood donations are at their lowest? You can help. In just 1 hour, you can donate blood with Carter Blood Care to help local patients in need. Donate blood, save lives. Visit carterbloodcare.org or call 800-366-2834.
Join us at Odyssey as we all do our one thing, together millions of things for our planet. If having turkey for the holidays, buy from a local farm, get one labeled USDA organic or certified humane. When we each share our one thing, it becomes a million things for our planet. What's your one thing?
I'm Tony Kornheiser, and this is my show. My friends come on and you know them. We talk about the sports you care about. Football, now basketball too, though we don't really pay attention until later in the year, and the absurdity that is our lives. Line etiquette at your local pharmacy, the current phase of the moon, the importance of talking to a human being on the phone, and most importantly, the power of a box of that. Listen on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, this isn't getting old, right?
Deep right field. This one is way back. This one is history. The game is tied 5-5.
Your world champion Rangers play here.
World right field is on its feet.
Turn it on and leave it on. The Fan.
This segment of the Get Right is brought to you by Classic Chevrolet. Just announced Classic Chevrolet in Grapevine's one-time Equinox offload. A limited supply of excess Equinox models will be sold direct to the public below market value. See them all at ClassicChevrolet.com. Don't wait. The best sell fast. Classic Chevrolet. Find new roads.
Back on the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan, about to have some sharing time here in just a moment. Truckrick.com text line 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053 to get involved in the conversation. Also live on Twitch and YouTube, twitch.tv/DallasFanCam and 105.3 The Fan on YouTube. And it's such a weird crossover seeing the son of Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio, beefing with the country music star Jelly Roll. That's not on my bucket list for today. Not on the bingo card whatsoever, but...
Did you just start talking about wrestling?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
That's what happens when you let me lead the show.
Yeah, that was my mistake.
Yeah.
Definitely should have thought better of that.
Yeah, well, you made the decision. There's no looking back now. All right. You got to live with those mistakes sometimes. It's time for sharing time here on the Get Right, where I will be doing this for the first time.
Yeah, you don't know how this works, do you?
I kind of know.
It's not a difficult concept.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically just audio show and tell in a way.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of things, and so I want to give you the option. Do we want to get heavy with it, or do we want to keep it kind of light?
Let's start light, and we can work our way down.
Okay. I just saw this on Twitter, and now I'm trying to find it again because I realized that. Have you ever done the thing where you just like hit refresh without thinking, and then you lose the tweet forever?
Yes.
Well, something that I did just see was apparently in a freezer section in some grocery store or something somewhere was, pizzas, frozen pizzas.
Yeah.
Frozen pizzas that you can make at the house.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing special in that way, except the particular brand caught my eye. And the brand was Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh.
And I did not realize. Did y'all know that Chuck E. Cheese had like pizzas that you could buy and take to your house and like cook them? And obviously you could probably buy them and take them to the house from Chuck E. Cheese. In fact, I'm pretty sure you can order them on like any of these delivery apps, which that's also a funny thing. Because I guess you could, you in theory, you can't just pull up to the Chuck E. Cheese without a child and be like, hey, let me get in there. I'm trying to get some pizza, right? That'd raise some suspicions. But that didn't take me back to the thought, like, I'm pretty sure I've always enjoyed Chuck E. Cheese pizza in the instances that I've had it. And there's no way it's actually like good pizza, if you know what I'm talking about. Like, there's no way that's like good pizza.
Yeah.
And so why is that? Do we have like any thought as to like why the Chuck E. Cheese pizza seems to hit in the way that it does, even though I know damn well there's no way that this is like great pizza?
That's purely got to be a play for the kids. My mind just goes straight towards the...
You say that. Look, the kids don't have money to buy this.
Well, yeah, but I hope they have parents that are thinking the way I'm thinking. The whole analogy of we got the McDonald's at home thing. Yeah, it's a real thing. That's incredible. Imagine that, though. That would be such a power move as a parent. You know, Mom, I want to go to Chuck E. Cheese, this Saturday. We got Chuck E. Cheese at home.
Yeah, but if I was doing it, I would just be like, we got pizza at home, and you get one of these, tombstones or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
like,
tombstone, yeah.
Whatever these cheap pizzas are.
Yeah.
The Walmart brand ones.
There you go. Whichever ones. Whichever ones we got to go there.
But the pizza rolls hit hard.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. But yeah, no, that took me back to a place where I was like, I'm pretty sure. And then I'm pretty sure that we've heard really crazy things about the way that Chuck E. Cheese gets down historically. Like, if I remember correctly, and I'm going to do my Googles as I talk to hopefully find the right answer to this, to make sure that I'm not telling y'all lies, because I would never do that intentionally by any means. But I'm pretty sure we have seen things about their practices not being correct. Like, I'm fairly certain I've heard of Chuck E. Cheese's taking uneaten slices of pizza and putting them back, if you know what I mean.
Oh.
Yeah. And still tastes delicious. I don't know why. Is that part of it? Do you have any thoughts on that? Someone said from the 432, maybe it's the rat in the kitchen. Because Chuck E. Cheese is a mouse.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess maybe it's got to be the magic of the animals. I don't know. I did see where they started taking out in some locations the animatronics.
Yes.
Because kids were too scared after the Five Nights at Freddy's movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I'm like, how are we just doing that in the year of our Lord 2023?
And what were we expecting with that movie coming out? Like, were we not expecting this to be the results?
That's a great point.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that's not really the target demo. Like, I don't know how many of the Chuck E. Cheese, audience necessarily is supposed to be a Five Nights at Freddy's or whatever the ultimate name of that is. I always forget.
Yeah, it's kind of evolved into that, though. It's really turned into a kid's game, even though it really shouldn't be. Because I was playing it even in high school, and I was like, this is kind of wild. Like, I just tried it out just to see what the hype was. And I'm like, this is kind of crazy, kind of creepy. How are kids playing this? I don't know.
Okay. But yeah, I was like, weird. The animatronics was like a thing from, what is it, 70s, 80s? Like,
Yeah.
how is this a thing that we're like, this is still an attraction?
I loved it as a kid.
I do appreciate from the Twitch line, not a fan 1053 says, Chuck E. Cheese is awful pizza. And he says, I remember because I raised two boys that always wanted to go and play the crappy video games and also the crappy prizes. And maybe that's the case. I don't know. But my memory seems to give me the thought that the pizza was good for some reason.
Yeah.
And maybe it is just like the nostalgia of building up this place where it's like, hey, this is fun. So you're going to like the things. Trust us. Maybe that's why they also started selling like alcohol for the adults.
Yeah.
It's like you won't notice that the pizza's terrible because you will be just a little bit on edge.
It'll taste a lot better when you're a couple Coors and a couple lemon drops in. I promise you that.
You think they're selling lemon drops? You think they've got a bartender at the Chuck E. Cheese?
No, I think you bring some of the mixers in your pocket.
Oh, wow.
And then you do the rest of the work.
That's real debauchery that you're talking. What is happening here?
People do that.
Although you say that as if you've seen it with the experience.
I've seen it on video. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
The things that I've seen on video is like you would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you just understand and you've lived life. How many times? Fights. Grown, like I'm not talking about little kids pulling pigtails. I'm talking about adults beefing and throwing hands, fisticuffs, if you will, at the Chuck E. Cheese. I remember there was a point I lived in Beaumont where the Beaumont Chuck E. Cheese was the place to throw down. Apparently, there's plenty of instances where people went and threw hands when they were at the Chuck E. Cheese, and I'm just like, sorry for the babies. The babies are trying to have a little fun, and all of a sudden they got to leave because somebody got their keister whooped. That's real sad. Anyways, I guess that's what I brought to sharing time, was just all spurred by, oh wow, you can actually go get the pizzas from Chuck E. Cheese at the freezer, which why would you do that except all my memories and nostalgia made me think that pizza's good.
Oh man, I had a couple of things that honestly I kind of thought about using over the weekend, but just didn't really get to it. Thanksgiving thoughts, as we are now days removed from this, but
yeah, by the way, PSA from the Get Right, go ahead and get those leftovers up out of there. They're not probably going to be good for you anymore. Stop doing it. Unless you like froze them.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Or if they're tamales.
Well, tamales are always good. That does not apply.
That's true. Yeah. And I'm sorry, this is just wild. I'm seeing CM Punk on WWE TV in 2023. This is nuts. Prevailing Thanksgiving thought, I'm sad that there is no other attraction anymore to me as an adult other than the football and the food, because I woke up and I saw tweets about the Thanksgiving Day parade and I did not care whatsoever. And I'm just so sad that the parade doesn't hold the substance that it used to for me because I've just outgrown it. Like, there's no element of it anymore that engages me whatsoever.
That's interesting. I feel like that's an interesting dilemma. Text line 877-881-1053 if you have any suggestions for Medford on ways to make Food's birthday fun for him again. I think one of the things that we can do is maybe like reframe the parade, which is, I understand, maybe like the thing itself is not fun, but maybe we can turn this into like what I like to do with bad movies, like an opportunity to make fun of it, right? And so like get on these tweets and like let's tweet snarky things about the parade and see if we can get some folks to jump in. And now you have a collective group of people tweeting about this thing that, like, in theory you don't actually enjoy, but then you turn it into having fun, making fun of the parade. That's a possibility,
fair.
right? Like, does that work?
I like that. And like the most fun thing I saw was there was a balloon float of an anime character. I don't watch any anime.
Was it Luffy, I believe?
Yeah,
is the...
and his hat got caught on a tree.
Yes.
And the hat deflated,
That's
but
right.
the rest was able to stay afloat.
I did notice Broadus, because this was mentioned in LA Live earlier today, and Broadus like was delighted. He was like, was there a strong wind? Because I like when there's a strong wind. And I'm like, why are you so happy to see destruction? But you know what? That might be where we're like, it's just like, hey, I don't enjoy this thing, so I would like chaos to ensue so that maybe that can make this fun for me. Which I feel like we should examine that in some ways. That feels like that's probably not the healthiest thing to have. On the truckwreck.com text line from the 214, they said, love your family as a level of solution. Is that going to help you?
Yeah, no, I was definitely involved with the family. It was just like, man, the entertainment value of having multiple things to do that don't involve the dinner table or the lunch table are just gone. It's kind of wild. But I did enjoy the football, I can't lie. Just sat around and watched football.
And you don't cook
day.
at all, do you?
No, I helped.
Okay, all right. Because that ends up being like some level of distraction, if not just like pure enjoyment. Like, hey, we're having, we're doing stuff. We have things that we're doing that are keeping us active.
Yeah, I definitely helped with the smoking of the ham and whatnot, some of the sides. But yeah, smoked ham was fantastic, and I'm not a big ham guy, but that was great.
We discussed this off air, and I'm going to spare you from me having this conversation with you on air. But if you would like to get at our guy Alec Medford about his not being a ham person, 877-881-1053. Not a fan on the Twitch has a suggestion for you. Suggests go from cake to pie for starters, which is interesting because, like, look, cake, pie, usually already done early.
Yeah.
And so, like, let's switch this up. I like the idea. I'm thinking about it. Start with dessert. Dinner, that's a proposition that only whoever's the master chef can decide, right? Some families will get it at 1, some families will get it at 3, some families will get it at 8, right? Yeah. Pie, you can get in there and sneak a slice of pie. They ain't gonna know. And if they do know, too bad. It's already been eaten. Deal with it.
And that's sharing time here on the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan.
We probably should have said legal things because the 432 was bringing some stuff up that I imagine that you don't want to engage in. Or maybe you do. I can't speak for you.
Yeah, I can't say I'd be in on that, but if you indulge, then sure.
You're like, I won't participate, but I will not judge you for doing so.
Exactly. There's no love lost here, 432. None whatsoever. If you are still engaged in this Monday Night Football game, it's 10-9 now in favor of the Vikings after a TJ Hawkinson touchdown.
Ooh, we're in a fun period of the game where I use fun very loosely. There's only 2 minutes or under 2 minutes left to go. Looks like the Bears are on their own 40-yard line, and they needed to get a drive going here to get themselves in field goal range to possibly take the win here or take the lead in order to try and win. And no timeouts either. Fun times. This is kind of the Phillip Rivers situation in a way.
Oh, wow. Phillip Rivers on the broadcast tonight. Great mention. We will get you updated on this game, what happens in the final sub 2 minutes, and get you the rest of your headlines here on the Get Right.
Thanks to our Tolos. Those are our listeners who turn it on.
Clarity Sexual Wellness. If you have achy joints, hair loss, want an IV drip, need muscle mass therapy, Men's T Clinic can help you. We talk about depth in a lineup. Well, Men's T Clinic has an awesome lineup of treatment plans. In fact, they have a full service menu at mensteclinic.com. Stop by one of their 5 DFW locations. Men's T Clinic, let's get back to being you.
Your turn it on, leave it on. Home of America's team is 105.3 The Fan.
Hello, baby.
KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas Fort Worth.
Always live on the free Odyssey app. From our fan studios secured by DFWsecurity.com, it's time for the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan.
Welcome back to DFW Sports Station 105.3 The Fan. It's the Get Right here on The Fan. My name is Alec Medford, joined by Reggie Atatula.
What up?
And Rigo Mendoza, holding things down for you, the Turn It On, Leave It On listener. We appreciate you so very much for joining us here on a Monday night. Thanks for sticking with us through the Cowboys Hour with DeMarvian Overshone. And
wait, hold on. Sorry. Completely. I understand that you're new to this, and I probably should do this or not do this nearly as much. But I'm very inclined to run a little bit of a wheels off show. Yeah. And I realize on the truckwreck.com text line from the 214, pursuant to your conversation about how, the parade just isn't quite hitting you the same.
Yep.
The 214 said Ninja Turtles dancing to Belle Biv DeVoe at the parade was tight. And I was like, excuse me, that sentence is a Mad Lib. You said what? There was Ninja Turtles dancing to Belle Biv DeVoe, and nobody notified me about this? Why did nobody tell me? I thought y'all was friends.
No,
that feels like something I should be notified about.
No, that feels like an acid trip is what that feels
like.
Nah,
I feel like if that's an acid trip, it's a very mild one.
That's fair.
And I was like, I feel like if you're tripping on acid, we should be able to go to different places than just. I would like to see the Ninja Turtles dance to Belle Biv DeVoe. 90s R&B.
I got to see this video now.
Yes, that's right.
That will be commercial break homework.
There you go. Very good. And if before we get to the commercial break, you have that video on you, at Reg Atatula on Twitter, at it's AM on the AM on the radio.
Alec on the radio.
Alec on the radio.
We'll get there.
Sorry.
I'm trying to make all the socials the same now because they used to be all different. So I'm trying to. I'm in the process of changing all of them to Alec on the radio.
That's right.
So I'm easy to find. For the 5 people that want to hear more of my work, I'd appreciate that.
And more of your tweets.
Yeah, my tweets are kind of dumb. I'm just warning you now.
That's what tweets are for.
Yeah, they're nonsensical. It's not full Travis Kelce level of just I'm going to use this as a journal when I was 11, and just say nap time, or any of that.
That's how Twitter was used at that point, though. Like I feel like
a great time.
We got to acknowledge the ways in which Twitter has changed over time. Like now, everybody's like, "This is my place for my public statement." As me as a brand, I have to speak on everything. And before it was just like, I am just telling my thoughts are going on the internet on this diary that everybody else could see. Although everybody else is a very, very small subsection of people because not that many people are actually on Twitter when you consider the grand scale of things.
That is true. And now I kind of want to check that out sometime when I have a day off. Just go through my old tweets.
Oh, that sounds like a segment. Bring that to sharing time tomorrow.
Okay.
Let's do that.
You know what? I will, as soon as I get home, I'm just going to scroll all the way back. I think I made my account probably 10 years ago. So
very good. That's not bad.
Yeah,
not bad at all.
We'll see it's probably just a bunch of wrestling tweets if we're being totally honest.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, let's get into your headlines before Reggie.
Fair enough.
Yeah, before Reggie kicks me out of here and doesn't let me lead the rest of the show, takes over my own segment, AM on the FM, coming up on the other side. Returning to the nights here on the Fan. I enjoy it. But what I don't enjoy is this football game that's on our TV right now. It's Monday Night Football between the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. And the Bears actually went down the field and were able to kick a field goal. So it is 12.
We didn't even get what they're kind of trying to do what Scott Van Pelt likes to call a pitchy pitchy woo woo. They're doing it.
Yeah. They are absolutely trying.
And what I do love about what is ultimately now being a failed attempt at pitchy pitchy woo woo is I do love that now we're putting an end to in a way the feel good story, and that's not the part that I like. Or I like that we've gotten away from the instance of look. We doing too much on the feel good story, and so
we are.
The Vikings had won 4 in a row at this point, and we were trying to. I think that not a lot of people, to be fair, I don't want to straw man this, but there was a subsection of people that were trying to make this like Josh Dobbs was something special.
Yeah.
And it is incredible what he's been able to do, just like walking into various buildings and giving them something and utilizing his legs. But look, that's not a good Vikings team. We know this.
It's not. And we absolutely did too much with it. I was one of them. I had way too much fun with it. And for all of 2 weeks, it should have been talked about. And now we are here, where they are officially now losing to the 3-8, now 4-8 Chicago Bears, 12-10, as it has gone final out there in Minnesota. So the Vikings suffer the home loss to a bad Bears team. And this is nothing that you want to go back and watch, trust me. I mean, Justin Fields was 26 of 36 for 217 through the air, no touchdowns, no picks. He did rush for 60, though. A whole bunch of field goals was the action there. And then you did get one touchdown in the game, and we did get a text from the 214 Alec, who won the fantasy matchup. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, so back to the scoring in this game. TJ Hawkinson ended up scoring a touchdown in the effort. Just a few catches on the night, 5 catches for 50 yards, and that score. That was your only touchdown scored in the matchup, but it did not do any good for the Minnesota Vikings as they fall 12-10 to the Bears. That game is final, and I'm so happy I can stop talking about it. That's it.
There you go. Very good. Elsewhere around sports, in college football news, Mike Elko was announced today as the new Texas A&M coach. He previously was the head coach at Duke for the last couple seasons, and he ended up there after he took that job. Previously he was the Texas A&M defense coordinator under Jimbo Fisher. So now Mike Elko takes over. He kind of has a history of being a guy that makes a little out of makes a lot out of little.
Yeah.
Through his tenure as a football coach, a college football coach, particularly head football coach, in his career. And so the idea being he's been able to make a lot out of programs that typically aren't supposed to be that good. Like, hello, Duke, right? A basketball school, we all understand. The year before he took over, they were 3-9. He immediately came in and turned that around into a 9-4 program the next year, with largely the same personnel. And so the idea being, if he can maximize that level of talent, how much more can he do with the levels of talent that Texas A&M have been consistently getting? You talk about, go look at the recruiting rankings over the last few years. A&M has been getting great prospects. It just has not been coming together in no small part because Jimbo Fisher is a very locked in guy. He wanted to run his system. Even when he brought in Bobby Petrino, a noted offensive guy when it comes to college football, well-established offensive guy, and they still kind of did things the same. And so the idea being Elko will come in theory, and, make more out of what this team has, which is a wealth of talent in the SEC.
Is this the move that you were making if you were in charge? Because I had a favorite. I'm fine with the Elko hiring because of the exact point that you said that, hey, there is a reputation of, there's not going to be much stagnant air there. He's going to try to make something out of what he has. So I don't hate the move, but I did really hope that Jeff Traylor was going to get the nod there.
Jeff Traylor's interesting. He gives you the connection as a former head coach in Texas football. He gives you the connection when it comes to recruiting, and that's one of the things that's been his calling card. I think that the recruiting portion is the part that they have down pat.
Yeah,
that's not really a problem. They are a national level recruiting program, and they've always had that. They need to make more out of that, and not to say that Jeff Traylor is incapable of that. Elko gives you a little bit more of that, and he has that Texas A&M tie because on the truckwreck.com text line from them 214, they mentioned why not Stoops, being Mark Stoops, who is currently the head coach at Kentucky. That one got a little interesting because it did seem like he was going to be the head coach of Kentucky. It seemed like he had also even already notified the University of Kentucky that was something he wanted to do. And this is one of those things where college football is different than other sports because there are parties that are not directly involved who absolutely, matter and make some things happen. And in this instance, they're called boosters. Those are the people that pass the hat around and put all that money up for Jimbo Fisher to get going. And ultimately, they're the ones who are going to put all the money up to pay Mike Elko's salary. They paid the $5 million that they needed to pay to Duke to let him out his contract. Those are the people that are going to have some portions of this, and they did not like the idea of Mark Stoops for whatever reason, right? And maybe it's just this name isn't sexy enough or what have you, does not have the connection with A&M and their boosters because that access is part of what the boosters pay for.
Yep.
And so having Elko, who I imagine is more, viewed more as A&M guy and also has those bona fides. I imagine that's why they went there as opposed to Mark Stoops. So I thought it would be a great hire. But yeah, that's A&M now in theory, on a path to maybe play better football. We will see if Elko can get it done.
This is a great nugget just on, you talked about putting the money up. Well, A&M will surely be doing that. Texas A&M owes at minimum a combined $119 million to head football coaches before 2031. They owe Jimbo Fisher $77 million and Mike Elko $42 million. And of course, that can grow based on incentives for Elko. So almost $120 million in total, just a little bit under in head coaching payments that they will be making until 2031.
If I can give you some other headlines on the night, or on the day, I should say, DaRon Bland, and this came through yesterday, in fact, but just wanted to make sure it was known. DaRon Bland is actually sending his cleats and gloves to the Hall of Fame after he broke the record for pick sixes in a season on Thursday, on Thanksgiving. 45-10 was the win against the Commandos. DaRon Bland needed to, commemorate that by sending to the Pro Football Hall of Fame his cleats and gloves from that game. But the ball that broke the record will stay with DaRon Bland, so he will keep that memento. Nice. But the rest of those things, the cleats, the gloves, will be enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So shout out to that man. Second year already, one, made history, but two, is already, in a way, going to be in, the place where football's highest honors reside, which is Canton, Ohio.
That's so cool to see that, I love when the Pro Football Hall of Fame does these things, can we get a piece of this moment? And it would be really cool just to see the pictures of those immortalized there, because what he has done in such a short amount of time this season has been so incredibly fun to watch. And it really didn't hit me until the next day when I sat there and listened to Jim Nance's call for maybe 4 or 5 times in a row. And I was like, we're really watching history.
Yeah,
with this guy. Like DaRon Bland, a mid-round pick out of Fresno State that everybody in the NFL was kind of looking over, and the Cowboys scouts were like trying to keep him under wraps. They were so in love with him. Comes in, steps in. He's expected to be like a fill-in nickel guy, and here he is playing essentially cornerback 1 for the Dallas Cowboys in lieu of Diggs' injury. It's just incredible what he's been able to do. I'm the biggest DaRon Bland fan. Like, he's just so, and the level of character that he carries with him too. You hear it all throughout the locker room coming out of the Star. This dude is so quiet.
Yeah.
And he's so happy to play football. He's just got the biggest smile on his face. And it's so weird for the cornerback position because we're so used to the Jalen Ramseys and to the Marcus Peters of the world.
Which, to be fair, like, that position takes a lot of cojones to be able to play it. Yeah. And so I understand why you need that outsized level of like bravado to play it. It's but it is incredible when you see some of those players that are a little bit more on the quiet side, or that are able to also draw up that level of, wherewithal and do it. And shout out to 972, because I don't disagree with you. The idea that I guarantee he gets more this season. It doesn't feel like he's done, like the way that he's played. And yes, 2-4. Jim Nance did really nail that call as it happened. A little bit more college football stuff, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
This is a little negative for Deion Sanders in Colorado, as Danny O'Neal joins Antoine Hill as another quarterback decommits from Colorado. And this is the tough thing when it comes to the Deion Sanders, is that when it was going good, I think everybody could have foreseen that it'd be really good when it was there. The tough part is now you're dealing with Shedeur Sanders, who currently has a fractured back. I don't know if you knew about this, because I know some of the attention that Colorado has kind of gone away. And now this is a 3-star recruiting quarterback out of Indianapolis, who had previously chosen Colorado over like Northwestern, Kentucky, Illinois, things like that. He's now decommitting from Colorado. And so Colorado has just 8 high school commitments. And I understand that they utilize the transfer portal, and imagine they're probably going to continue to try and utilize the transfer portal. But one of the problems is, like, you need to bring in recruits of all types. And one of the things also is, I imagine these quarterbacks are decommitting in part because you look at the offensive line play and it's not been good. And you've seen the way that Deion has kind of trashed the offensive line. Understandably, like, they were not good, but the people portions of this are necessary. And so you look at the offensive line, I don't know that they're recruiting a lot of offensive linemen, and you can't necessarily portal an offensive line. So if I'm a quarterback, I also would look at that and go, yeah, I'd rather play it safe. looking a little tough for Deion and his Colorado Buffaloes at this point in the offseason. Or I guess, yes, the offseason as it just hit.
Is this a short-term fix, or is this a long-term project for Deion? Like, obviously, we don't know how long he's going to stay with Colorado because people were already trying to drum him up for A&M's opening when that came up. But let's just say that he was there for the next few years. Is this a short-term fix, or is it something that, hey, we're going to have to build on this and try to, build up more NIL funds to try to get more recruits over the next couple of years?
That sounds great, right? We're just going to build up NIL funds. People have to spend that money.
Exactly.
And Colorado does not have the booster base for that, right? Like these are the things that we tried to talk about before or early on in the tenure that I understand. Like they went and found the money to be able to pay him. That was one thing, right? Having the money to be able to put into NIL, like you have to have the structures to be able to do this. College football is one of those things that's very much based off of like the economics of the things around than just can you coach and those types of things, right? Those are kind of determine your aptitude in a way. And so he's done a lot with what he could right now. I think this is where it starts getting more difficult. Building a program is an entirely different thing. And so on a certain level, yeah, he can still be successful. I'm not trying to say that this ends Deion's capability of being successful. That would be naive and stupid. But the idea that this is going to just be him walking in and talking his way into this. No. There's a reason why Colorado has not had very many winning seasons, why their coaches are not having great tenures there and then moving along, is because it's really tough to win there. And so shout out to him for getting those 4 wins that I think a lot of people did not anticipate to begin with. But to get the other 4 or try and push it to 5, it's going to need to be another level of addition. And maybe the idea that you have some guys in that maybe you can hold on to and transfer some more people in, maybe that'll help you move this thing along. But it's not going to be easy. And you've already had a coach resign earlier this week, or last week rather. And so I'm not trying to say that it's doom and gloom necessarily, but it's not an easy task winning in Colorado, and that's something we knew from the start.
It's incredible to see how things are unraveling out there. Just so many ups and downs and so many twists and turns for Coach Prime and company out there in Colorado. Interested to see what happens next, but there's some of your headlines here on the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan. And coming up next, the truckwreck.com text line is 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053 to answer today's question of the day, because it's time for AM on the FM, where we have that question of the day, Dave Grohl's friendly reminder to stay out of jail, and UFC versus OnlyFans. Next.
The more you listen, the harder we grind. The headlines are created here on DFW Sports Station 105.3.
Answer today's question of the day because it's time for AM on the FM.
What does this button do? Please, please, do not push the button. You have no idea what it...
Don't you dare touch that dial.
Don't you dare do it because it is time for AM on the FM here on 105.3 The Fan. You can also get involved on the Twitch and YouTube, twitch.tv/DallasFanCam or 105.3 The Fan on YouTube. And the question of the day has to go with what I literally had to eat before I came up here for the show.
Okay.
The question is, now that it is colder outside, it's not cold, but it's colder. And I was out there putting up Christmas lights and decorations yesterday for like 2.5 hours, so I was freezing. And I was thinking, I want some comfort food right now. What is your go-to comfort food whenever it's cold outside? 877-881-1053, Twitch and YouTube, to answer the question of the day.
That's a good question. I think of late it's become chili. Doing chili with some cornbread, and that'll make me feel good. That's elite. Yeah, that's become it of late. I was gonna say tea, but that just feels a little too.
I'll take it honestly because one thing for me, especially in the morning, is coffee. Just because like when it's cold outside, I sleep upstairs, so the cold really gets cold quick. So I wake up and right when I get out from underneath the blankets, it's like, oh man. I need something warm, so I can get the coffee brewing. Yeah.
Is your house one of those houses where it's like we don't change the thermostat until it's really, really cold? Is that what it? Okay.
Yeah. My dad's always been like that.
I'm very much this needs to be whatever I want it to feel like. So if it's starting to get there, that heat gets flipped on. We're gonna turn this up to whatever degrees that it needs to be. It's gonna be in the right spot.
See, when I'm not paying the bills, I just nod my head and keep
That's
going.
Fair enough, right? Like, yep.
So I'm just enjoying that luxury while I still can. Rigo, what is your go-to comfort food whenever it's cold outside?
It's probably soup 9 times out of 10. I mean, probably like anything like pozole or menudo. The other one too is there's a specific brand of hot chocolate, chocolate abuelita in Spanish. So, Yep.
Familiar. Have seen.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually had that. Surprisingly enough, I've actually had it.
Really? What'd you think of it?
It was great. Yeah, because at my old house growing up next door, this kind of plays into Reg's choice as well. my next door neighbor, Justin, still is my best friend ever, and his parents, his mom, was born and raised in Mexico. So I tried a lot of those national foods and whatnot, and international tastes. So I was on that stuff early, and she would make that for us whenever I would come over. We would play like football in the backyard when it's freezing cold. Come back inside, she would have it sitting on the counter waiting for us. It was great. It was fantastic. And his dad would make this fantastic homemade chili that me and my dad were like, how do you do this? Like, he even gave us the recipe, and we still couldn't match it.
Yeah, you ain't got the technique.
Yeah, we didn't have the technique. And just both parents in the Haggard household were fantastic. I'm sad I don't live right next door to them anymore, so I don't get that on a daily basis. But yeah, those were my go-tos when I was younger, for sure. It was fantastic.
We're getting some great answers in on the truckwreck.com text line, 877-881-1053. On from the 972, they said legit Japanese ramen. Ramen's a good one. I think I lean towards like pho.
Yeah.
I mean, ramen is great though. That's a great answer in that place. Someone said my comfort food is deer chili. Have not had, need to have. That sounds fantastic. From the 903, chicken and dumplings.
Oh, I like it.
Okay, all right.
I'm cool with it. Mine, for the most part.
One more. Lasso says something that I don't have enough, but I need to on the Twitch. Gumbo.
Yeah.
Yep.
The thing for me is, I talked about this, I kind of previewed this question with our fan phenom, Blake, and throughout Gumbo, and he had a great point. He's like, when I'm thinking comfort food, I'm not thinking of too much effort most of the time. I was like, you know what? I'm not either. Because a lot of the things when I'm thinking I want comfort food, it's, like a 10, 15, maybe 20-minute process tops. So if it's available for me, absolutely. If it's already there, yes, 1,000% on some of the more complex things that need time.
Y'all are leaning heavy on this comfort. I'm just like, is it something that makes me feel good when it's hot? The amount of effort going in is not necessarily my consideration.
Fair. To me, yes. I can cook and I will cook. It's just most of the time I'm up against some sort of clock.
Sure.
So I'm just like, whether it's class, whether it's work, or just other commitments, I'm like, I got somewhere to be. Let's make something quick. And today, before work, I just had some good old-fashioned pasta. And I am different varieties. I just love pasta, because the origins of it is because growing up I was a distance runner, so I needed those carbs.
There you go.
And the quickest way was just a bowl of pasta. I changed the toppings up here and there to get some extra protein or whatever, or maybe some extra sugars or whatever. But yeah, pasta has always been my go-to. Had some before I came up here, and that's why when I walked out of the elevator, I just got sleepy. I was just like, I should not have done that. I really should. I was like, I got a plan to show, or a show to plan. See, I got a show to plan with Reggie. I got a crosstalk.
I think
with
you said it great
G-Bag.
the first time, to be honest.
I really didn't, but I appreciate it. Yeah, like I've got stuff to do. I still got to work. I was telling you pre-show, I haven't done a night shift up here since baseball season, so I was like, yeah, eating will be a great idea before I leave, so I don't get hungry during the show.
It is important.
I just wanted to take a nap right when I got up here.
That tryptophan was hitting, huh?
Yeah.
Wait, he didn't eat turkey, did he? Was it turkey pasta?
No.
Okay.
No. But did have some leftovers earlier, though. I will say that.
There you go. There it is.
Yeah, so it's still processing. But I do have some headlines I want to get to.
Headline!
That are not important at all, but they're fun to me. Dave Grohl, the legendary frontman for the Foo Fighters.
Absolutely.
Grew up with that genre thanks to my parents, so Dave Grohl has a very big place in my upbringing.
Sorry to anybody that made feel old.
Yeah.
It's not the intention.
And I mean, I was definitely raised around some older music too, so I'm very glad that I was, because I would be lost without some of this. But Dave Grohl is one of my favorite people on the planet because he's just like us. Like, he's such a simple human.
Yeah. I mean, didn't he teach himself by ear how to drum as well? Like always fantastic to think about that. He's
literally just like us. He's just one of those guys. So he did some sort of pre-show concert at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and there's
money.
Yeah, there's a lot of different cultural differences out there and things that can get you in a lot of trouble that won't necessarily overhear.
Sure.
So during his set, he literally in between songs peeled off a sign to show fans his friendly reminder to himself so he doesn't get multiple years in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Peels it up off the ground, and it is a landscape piece of paper that has 2 lines, and it says, no cursing in all caps. And he showed it to the audience as his friendly reminder because a lot of the things he says during shows can get him prison time.
That's right.
Out there in the UAE.
I do love when folks are, like doing the travel flexing. Like, oh, look at all these places that I've been and I'm going. Yep. And I'm like, that one in particular, like, especially in the Middle East, and this is not like a shot to the Middle East because there's lovely places to go. It's just like, all right, just make sure you're on your P's and Q's, right? Because, like, it can go from a vacation to a different type of stint that you don't want it to be. And of course, there's a lot of places, right? Like, I guess I should just open this up. Wherever you're traveling, how about you know the customs, right? Like,
yes.
you will not get a ton of leeway just because you ain't from here. So you always want to be careful, no matter where you're going. Be real considerate in that way.
Yeah,
I guess the one that it just always comes to mind because there's been certain instances recently that have called this.
Yeah. Just don't act up in other people's homes, essentially.
That's right.
Just be on your best behavior and you'll be okay most of the time, if not all of the time. Just be a decent human.
Shout out to our Twolos that are dealing with the fact that Nirvana in this way is kind of referred to as old by you. Shout out to y'all.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time listening to my dad's old 8-tracks and stuff. So
8-tracks.
Yeah. No, like I was very behind on the technology up until like high school because I just enjoyed it so much. I loved living in the VHSs and in the 8-tracks and the vinyls.
Look at you being an old soul.
Like, yeah, I loved it. I really did. Like, I think up until like 12 or 13, I was playing with my dad's work pager because I thought it was cool.
That's right.
From like 2004.
He's like, look at this steampunk
yes.
technology.
Like, I thought it was so cool. Yeah, like all of that. Like I kept so many of those things just because I thought they were cool, even though I had a whole iPhone in my back pocket, and I was just messing with those because I was like, this is cool. This is old. I like it. So not to age any of you guys. I'm sorry. Someone in the Twitch did say that they had never seen me before earlier, and I look like a baby, but I sound like an old pro. I appreciate that. Hopefully that holds up over the years because, I still get ID'd. That's a good thing.
And you should.
Yes.
And you should. Can I stop real quick on the IDing front? Yes. I do find it hilarious, like the people that like get mad about getting carded.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that person's just doing their job.
Yeah.
Like this is not as much a judgment of you and your looks or whatever. That person's just supposed to card.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's just so, I mean, don't take it personally. Just hand them the card and we can keep moving.
And trust me, like I'm a regular at some of these places, like the Pluckers in Arlington out in the Highlands.
Oh, that place is a monster to work at.
Yes. And trust me, I'm there a lot, pretty much once a week with the boys, and they see me all the time and they still card me and I've never gotten mad about it. It's just like the boys will laugh, be like, haha, you still get ID'd. It's like, hey man, that means I look young.
Honestly, that's just because the boys are going to laugh regardless. That's all I mean.
They always are. We can laugh about this. UFC's Aylin Perez, a fighter over there that isn't exactly high up in the ranks to, get all the showtime and make all the money out of the big purses and the big fights.
Wait, hold on. There are people in the UFC that make all the money?
Yeah,
that's news to me.
There's some that go into business for themselves with the advertising and whatnot. So, she's making some smaller amounts in, the grand scheme of things. So, she ended up getting a win in UFC's Vegas 82 matchup with Lucy Pudilova. That's my best attempt.
Very good.
And my one and only attempt.
I'm not going to pretend like I know.
Pudilova. How about that?
Sounds great.
That sounds better.
Yep.
So this was on Saturday. It was a unanimous decision win against her. And she proceeded to handstand on the cage and twerk. And then she announced on social media afterwards that she had an OnlyFans page.
That's good work.
And she made it free to subscribe to, but she had donations open.
Interesting.
So the numbers comparing this to what she made for the fight versus what she made 24 hours after the fight. She says she made $24,000 for the fight. That was before any of the sponsorship money was received for the fight as well. After the fight, after twerking and promoting her OnlyFans page and opening it up to the public, she made $30,000.
Very nice.
In tips and donations on her OnlyFans.
Look, that's what we call going into business for yourself.
Yes.
That's incredible. Like that's smart business.
That's smart business. Like I can't knock it. That is fantastic work.
Although the only thing that I question is like I feel like people would have bought in if you just went ahead and did it with the regular membership.
Yeah.
But look, you let people get in, get a little taste, see what's happening. Shout out to you. Shout out to the folks supporting an independent entrepreneur.
Yeah. We support small businesses.
What was it? Small? It's you get Black Friday, you get
Small
Cyber
Business
Monday.
Saturday.
Is it Small Business Saturday?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
And the fight was on Saturday.
There you go. That's exactly what it was. Small Business
works
Saturday.
Out. Man, look at us as a community. We are growing. This is great.
Lobbed it up and you guys dunked it down.
Yeah, real quick. Let's turn this. Yeah, from the 972. I see you though. Maybe that has some level of pertinence. And this is a great text from the 469. They just want to know what the name was again, so that they can avoid it, right?
Yeah.
Like we know what to avoid.
Yeah, you're totally not going to do your research later tonight. Ailin Perez is her name. Ailin Perez.
Ailin.
Yes.
Very good.
So go avoid her.
That's right.
Go mute her name on Twitter.
We would not encourage you to go do any level of Googling or searching on Twitter or donating. We're not telling you to do those things.
Yeah. So,
but we also can't tell you to not to.
Yeah, we can't tell you what to do. We're just here. We're just talking. That's AM on the FM. That's literally what it is. Just talking, just chatting on the fan. So I see your face. What did you peep?
No, there's an interesting story told about a friend of ours that went to, or a Tolo of ours that went to Thailand. They said, speaking of customs, to be aware of in other countries. They were in Thailand. Long story short, put their feet up to relax. Not a lot of people around, but the few that were immediately kind of freaked out and told them that it's disrespectful to show the bottom of your shoes or feet. He had his shoes on, but
see,
felt bad.
Yeah, it can be the things that are so little to you that are every day. It's crazy the differences compared to our culture.
Yeah, man, don't go around showing that peace sign in Australia. Things like that.
Yeah, that's a no-no.
Yeah,
but what is happening next is the final call on the Get Right.
Coming up Tuesday morning on Sean and RJ, a monster show.
Trailblazer Offload. New 2023 Chevy Blazer. Buy for only $299 a month for 84 months. Limited supply. Classic Chevrolet. Find new roads. Stock number 191255. MSRP $25.95. $3,000 classic discount. $22,595 sale price. Payment based on 7.99% APR with approved credit through GM Financial. $3,500 down payment plus tax, title, license, and $150 dealer dock fee. Ends 12/31/23.
Buyers Barricades is proud to provide traffic control rental and sales for work zones and events in the DFW area and beyond. Buyers Barricades is a full-service provider, taking care of your project from the evaluation and traffic control planning to setting up, maintaining, and taking down the equipment when the project is complete. If you're in need of barricade rental, learn more at buyersbarricades.com. Service-driven and safety-inspired. Buyers Barricades, the Texas authority in barricade rental. buyersbarricades.com.
Boomer Esiason is on the Fan. Check out Kickoff, getting you ready for every game. Sunday mornings at 7 on the Fan. Presented nationally by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos, brought to you by those who drink it. And Lowe's. Lowe's knows home improvement. It's Boomer on 105.3 The Fan.
This segment of the Get Right is brought to you by Classic Chevrolet. Just announced Classic Chevrolet and Grapevine's one-time Trailblazer offload. A limited supply of new Trailblazer models will be sold direct to the public below market value. See them all at ClassicChevrolet.com. Don't wait, the best sell fast. Classic Chevrolet, find new road.
One final time here on the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan. Alec Medford and Reggie Atatula here with you for the next 10 minutes or so, and then you can wake up with Sean and Bobby tomorrow at 5:30. KNC Masterpiece 10-2, the G-Bag Nation 2-7, and then us two again for the Get Right full show 7-11 tomorrow. That's why you turn it on and leave it on 105.3 The Fan. But it is time for the final call before we get up on out of here. And again, if you missed Monday Night Football action, you did not miss much of anything. Yeah, congratulations. You spent your time well today.
Well, I don't know that I can definitely say that you spent it well, but you avoided one of the pitfalls that could have been with your time. I don't know what they did. They might have done something that was not spending their time well, but you definitely avoided one of the possible pitfalls, which would have been watching Monday Night Football, the Bears and the Vikings play what was not a fun game to watch.
12-10 is the final. The Bears advance to 4-8 with the win. The Vikings fall to 500, 6-6 with Joshua Dobbs, who was not good. Even though he did throw the only touchdown of the game, he threw 4 picks.
Not what you want.
Not great for a quarterback, but the Cinderella story of Josh Dobbs, this feel-good story that, kind of got turned into something way more, showed to be just that today.
Yeah, look, he clearly has the mobility that makes us good. He has a certain level of ability to. I mean, he throws a pretty good ball and all these things, but there's no mistaking him for a good quarterback in this league. And understanding that that level of quarterback, there's very few of those, right? So I don't really view that as particularly an insult to him. But there's a reason why he's kind of bounced around and been a third quarterback and such. It's that's the level of play that you get from him. Except if you really need something in a pinch, he seems to be good at stepping in a pinch and giving you something. They're no longer in a pinch, right? They are just kind of depending on him to be their quarterback. And also, some of this isn't him itself. The Minnesota Vikings were not a good team last year when they were 8-1 at home and they had a whole hell of a lot of one-score victories. And you've seen that kind of turn around a little bit this year. And so there's a lot of different things that are factoring in with all of this with the Vikings. I imagine it's not fun to lose to the Chicago Bears, though.
It can't be fun because that is not a good team out there with Matt Eberflus running things for the Bears. And you mentioned the Minnesota Vikings of last year. It feels like, to me, for my money, that narrative, that character of the 2022 Minnesota Vikings has gotten up, left, and it is headed to the city of brotherly love, to the Philadelphia Eagles. Changed my mind.
Oh, that's interesting because that feels very different, right? That was a team that was bad, that was kind of getting away with it. The Eagles are a good team that are kind of leaning upon some of those things, putting that together at the end of games. Obviously, there's still some similarities in there, and I'm not going to, fail to acknowledge that. But there are definitely good things in here, and there's definitely things that with the Eagles, some of it is you have different coordinators, and you saw them go through instances where they were trying different things, and you're like, hey, why don't you do the things that work? with this particular team, and you've seen them kind of tap back into some of that stuff. But I am interested to see like this continue to be tested, right?
Yeah.
Because if you do believe this to be some level of luck, which does exist when it comes to like sports, right? There's some level of, you got some good fortune in some instances. Does that at some point then get to a place where, you lean back on the ways in which they're playing tight games and this kind of normalizing into some of these games not going their way? Will be seen. I mean, it remains to be seen. And I imagine the Cowboys want to be one of those teams, if not, the first of these teams to make that clear that, hey, this team is not only gettable, that someone can actually do it outside of that one team that made it happen for the Eagles this year.
Yeah, the Eagles are absolutely the better of the two, comparing them to the 2022 Vikings. But, it just scares me the way that team is playing football, the brand of football, that it's not going to be sustainable later on in the postseason. That's what scares me for them. And, a good thing for Dallas, obviously. I'm not trying to take a Cowboys perspective from it. It's just the one-score games don't really work in your favor at that point in the postseason, because even against what you would consider inferior opponents, if you're going against a lesser seed like the Eagles certainly will be, then you can still find yourself in hot water because it's a different ball game in the postseason. We saw it in baseball this year, with the Texas Rangers even. Teams play harder, teams play different, a new approach, and then you saw it last year with the Vikings getting bounced by a 9-win Giants team. That's just how it works in pro sports is, weird things happen. So it's just, if I want to believe in them more, which I don't personally, but if I were, I want to see something a little more flashy. They don't have to burn the world down every single game, but there's a lot of close football games, man, especially against the premier talent in the league, like we just saw with the Buffalo Bills going into overtime. They're still wins. Like at the end of the day, they're still 10-1.
Yeah.
That's still a really good football team. It just worries me down the road. It's going to be interesting to see how they hold up when it comes deeper into the winter.
Yeah, I think when it comes to like they just win, is that sometimes that can obscure you from, do they have the capabilities to do the things that constantly, create winning.
Yeah.
And so with the Vikings last year, it was like they're getting wins, but they're not showing you that the abilities that can predict winning in the future. Yeah. The Eagles do have those things, but both bona fides in the past, and you still see the things that's like, oh, that will be conducive to winning in the future, even though they're doing it in a slim margin. I think that ends up being the difference. But ultimately, this is still an any given Sunday type of league, and they're existing very much in that space. So you hope that they can get got in a few instances. What will be getting got in this bowl season in college football is apparently a Pop-Tart mascot. So are you familiar with what was previously called the Cheez-It Bowl?
Yes, and I'm mad that it's gone.
Well, fear not. It will be replaced by the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
What are we doing?
And very important news in that, brought to us by Nicole Auerbach of The Athletic. The Pop-Tarts Bowl will have its first ever edible mascot. So according to the bowl, when the final whistle blows, the winning team will be celebrating by taking a bite of the giant pastry mascot. And so we're going to watch like some weird, it's not cannibalism because like it's not a human or anything, but it's like weird idea of them taking a bite of a mascot.
I don't like that.
I don't either. I feel very uncomfortable with the thought. Also, like, how are they going to have this mascot be edible? Is this like an edible suit that this person is having to wear?
That's what
like,
I'm wondering.
It's very uncomfortable to think about. Exposed to elements. What happens if they have to sit down? Are they doing push-ups like Puddles, the Oregon Duck? Like, what's happening with this mascot?
As a grown man, I don't know if I want these giant college football players just coming up to me, taking their helmets off and biting me. That's just, no.
Alec, and at our height, it's not suitable. It's not conducive.
That's just, I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. However, you know what? Sometimes bowl season needs to get something. There needs to be something that gets you drawn in, particularly if we're not talking about New Year's Six games or if we're not talking about playoff at this point.
Fair enough.
I imagine that if for no other reason than to see the mascot get bitten into, you might check out the Pop-Tarts Bowl coming to a television near you this bowl season.
No, it's not going to be on my television. from Lasso on the twitch.tv/DallasFanCam, saying we both hands down have the best set of locks on the station.
We're talking just hair?
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I mean, we got a lot of bald happening at the station.
Yeah, we do. Tis true.
Chiafalo got, some flowing hair when it comes down to it.
I think as a combination, though, we might have the best.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's a true statement. Appreciate you, Lasso.
Very nice. Appreciate it.
Well, Reg, I had fun. You want to do this again tomorrow?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Let's do it a full show. 7 to 11, the Get Right will return with myself, Alec Medford, and Reggie Atatula here on 105.3 The Fan. Reminder that Mike McCarthy will be on with the morning show tomorrow at 6, so you won't want to miss that, followed by Jerry Jones later on the show. So until tomorrow, this has been the Get Right.
Y'all be easy.
Peace!
We have you covered, Stars fans, with exclusive content from two-time Stanley Cup champion Greg Ludwig and NHL reporter Sean Shapiro. It's Spits and Suds